gentlemen, we are now live on YouTube, LinkedIn. That's right, LinkedIn and Twitter. We're going to speak for a little bit of time here on all things related here to the WWE and AEW. A lot of stuff going on out there, and I'm here with Mr. Randy Dillon. He is our resident Sportswire Radio wrestling analyst. I acknowledge you, Randy. And how you doing there, my friend? Good to see you again.
Good, Tom. How are you? Happy Friday, fight night. So it's a good
Yeah,
night.
a lot of stuff going on here. You got AEW. I have AEW for the first time on here on a Friday with Rampage. I see a different variation of John Morrison wrestling Orange Cassidy there. And then obviously we saw what happened with the Usos. So first here, I guess to go recap, what do you think now happens with the Usos? It sounds to me like Jay had kind of said the words, he's done. Did you hear that at the end of the show or what?
I did hear that. I think, and I just tweeted about it. Unless an injury happened or something crazy happens, we're gonna see the Usos at WrestleMania. I said this after on the post show with SummerSlam. Yes. There's so much time till Mania. I know they probably want to do this match. Could have done differently, yes, but I think this is the only way you can keep the build for up to WrestleMania because there's too much time if you want to have the match there.
So you don't think we're going to see this match even at Survivor Series? You think that we're going to continue this build here with the Usos, and this is just going to go on and on and on and on?
Unfortunately, yes, I have a feeling. Unless somehow the match takes place early where it gets pushed. I remember Paul Heyman said this. It was in 2015 when Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker just had their match at SummerSlam, and they had their match their third and final match at WrestleMania, and he said, there's no point of waiting. Sometimes you just have to get the match done. Listen, you owe it to the Usos to have the big match, but with the time lapse, it doesn't make sense. And just another little bit of history. We all remember the build to Triple H versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania in Orlando. Such a big time gap in that sense. I don't like when any WWE or any wrestling promotion does that, when you have too long of a build. It doesn't make sense.
We got 8 months. I mean, WrestleMania we just got over SummerSlam. So, I mean, WrestleMania is in April. So that's a long build. I'm assuming I guess Jay's done based off those comments. Okay, you go away with it. But then what happens with Jimmy? Because Jimmy didn't exactly acknowledge Roman either.
I think Jimmy might be the next one in line to get a title shot. It just makes more sense. Again, Jimmy was the original one who started all this with Roman, with the Usos kicking him at Night of Champions. So I think it only makes sense for him to get a match and eventually Solo to get a match, and then
to me though, this goes into almost Roman. He's just going to be champion and on and on and on and on. And I don't know, Randy. I guess I don't know, but there's one thing I did think that was interesting. Two other things. First of all, Rey Mysterio, new United States champion. What do you think there?
Surprising, and we talked about this on
Austin Theory. Yes, we talked about it on Saturday. Austin Theory's days could be numbered, and it was numbered maybe quicker than maybe we would have thought.
Not only that, the LWO, how popular they are. They are definitely...
Yeah, I was listening to Eric Bischoff's podcast. I don't know if I said it on Saturday, but I definitely heard it after our show. And he said that the LWO merchandise is like selling more than it did back in the 90s.
No, exactly. I think Santos Escobar, I think, would have been the perfect guy, because I think Rey Mysterio is at the point, he's on his end of his career. He's at a point where he's wrapping things down. I think he might have a couple more matches and a final match with Dom to end it up down the road. I think what this might set up for possibly LA Knight to win the title, and then that might even put him over. And then if Ray says he's okay, maybe that's more of a thinking of, if Ray says he's okay putting it over LA Knight, getting that big pop there, then that might just more solidify him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Rey Mysterio, I just don't see him ever. He's in great shape. I mean, I see your point. He's definitely in the second half of his career, but we've learned so much in the wrestling business that these guys, they can't hang it up. And I don't know. I'm still going to say stay tuned. Maybe Austin Theory gets a rematch. I'm thinking maybe even Santos Escobar. I mean, there's still that there. He got injured, obviously, quote unquote, and maybe we'll see that. I think that would be more interesting to see Santos take the title from Rey. But the other thing I found interesting was, are we going to get, which I never realized we didn't have this before, Edge and Sheamus?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when they first announced it, because Sheamus started his WWE run in 2009. and him and Edge barely crossed paths. I think they
Edge might have had a year, right? Maybe a year.
year and a half,
2010 was the neck injury, right?
in
2010.
2011 when he ended it, and where Sheamus, I think they had one encounter in a fatal four-way match with Randy Orton and John Cena back in 2010 with the whole neck six thing. But I think this is. Listen, Sheamus has been vocal saying he wants more time. Other superstars deserve more of an opportunity to come up. And listen, you got without Sheamus was really the one that really his performance at Clash of Castle was really elevated Gunther to that next level. Gunther
Yeah.
wouldn't be there without Sheamus' work. So I definitely think it well deserved. I think Sheamus still has some run time to go. I think the Brawling Brutes is a great group. Use what you can use from him. Like he's still a great talent. He can get the job done.
Yeah, I think Sheamus has still got something left. He is definitely, though, older in his career. I mean, is this it, though, for Edge? I mean, this after this match, what happens?
I don't know what next happened to Edge. I know there's been rumbling Edge saying he's not happy with how he's been used creatively, and then you have the rumors. Okay, does he jump to AEW? The only that is a possibility because maybe he wants to end his career with Christian, but I don't think Edge is going to leave WWE at any point. He's treated it
No,
well.
I don't see it. I would be really surprised. I mean, Edge is not Christian. I mean, I guess you could maybe see a point Christian had left before going to TNA years ago, but Edge has always been. I mean, they've still been putting over the 25th anniversary of his career. I mean, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah, I'm skeptical about that. Well, I think maybe he has another year left, maybe another two. I know the big thing was last year he said the report saying he wanted to end his career in Toronto. His contract is coming to an end. So it's all the speculation. So we'll see what happens here. But
all right, we'll see. And obviously, we saw that Nakamura had turned on Seth Rollins, so maybe that's where Seth. You did call it. We're going to get to that next. I mean, so I guess we're going to see Nakamura and Seth for a little bit. Maybe is that where we could see somehow Damian Priest enters in with the Money in the Bank? Or obviously Judgment Day has got some issues right now. Where do you see all that?
Yeah, this is getting interesting with the Judgment Day because there was so many rumors before saying JD McDonough was going to join Judgment Day, and now it sounds like okay, the Judgment Day is going to split ties with Finn, or is Priest going to be the odd man out? So it's very interesting what's going to happen in that sense. For Damian Priest cashing it in the Money in the Bank, the one thing I was thinking was the new term with the Money in the Bank is you can cash in any champion. It's not the World Heavyweight or the WWE Universal Champion.
If he cashes in on an Intercontinental or U.S. title, that would really be a letdown, Randy. That
would be, but just how Gunther had made the IC title so important, I would say that's more of a small hunch. It makes more sense.
I would rather see him cash in on the NXT title because Dom's got the North American title, and that would be clever. That would be clever.
Yeah, that would make more sense. Like I know there's talk they want to build NXT up to a third brand, which technically they kind of were before the whole ratings war back in 2019 with AEW on Wednesday. That's a conversation for another day. But there's a lot of different options they could go with Priest at this moment. And who knows, maybe he tries cashing in and Finn costs him the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Intercontinental would be interesting, but I think they're going to push that streak, breaking the Honky Tonk Man's record. We spoke about that on Saturday's show. The NXT title to me would be very intriguing because I agree with you. NXT has been built up again. No question on that. Nakamura and Seth, I think, is interesting. Gives Nakamura something to do. That's a good point. Let's go over to AEW for a few minutes before I bring the regular guys on. We have a pay-per-view coming up this weekend, which, by the way, has officially surpassed SummerSlam in the amount of tickets sold. So what do we expect here coming up at All Out?
Well, first we got to give credit to Tony Khan and AEW. He took a gamble. This really could have backfired, but I think that UK market really been craving a big wrestling event.
Absolutely, we know it better here than anybody else on Sportswire. I've been covering it since during COVID.
So he definitely paid off. The one thing with the pay-per-view, which is disappointing, and this is their biggest pay-per-view so far, the matches just getting kind of thrown together doesn't make sense in any sense. Unless it's Adam Cole versus MJF, and really, I'm even confused what's going to happen here because
I heard Eric Bischoff talk a lot about that, and he was speaking on his 83 Weeks podcast. I don't know if you listened to it, and I was listening to him talk about AEW, and he was saying that's the problem with AEW is that they book this stuff like we've spoke about in the past, and it's like they bring somebody in, they build them up for 1 or 2 weeks, and then it's kind of like everything's kind of put together, and there's no kind of rhyme, where or reason almost. That's kind of been my problem with AEW for a while now, honestly.
AEW, like, they put on great matches, and the Young Bucks with FTR in front of that crowd, both tag teams deserve that match. Like, it's going to be phenomenal there. Jungle Boy and RVD, that could have waited a few till All Out in London. RVD is a big household name. Why are you putting him on a match on Dynamite, which shows, hey, he can still go? Samoan Joe versus Punk. The only reason that match is happening is because Joe and Punk do have a good relationship.
That goes back to the Ring of Honor days.
Yeah.
Certainly, no question that they've crossed paths. Absolutely.
But again, to your point, they were building. It looked like they were building something with Ricky Stark and Punk, and again now Ricky Stark just dropped down on his face. I don't know what the heck they're doing with Jericho. Like, if this is really Sammy Guevara's big push.
Well, I think the Jericho Appreciation Society, I would think, is going to the exits. It sounds like.
Yep, they're done. And the one thing I'm concerned with is if this is Sammy Guevara big push, you do need to build it properly. Like in AEW, we've seen superstars, they get a little bit of a build. Example, Ricky Starr, who beat Jericho earlier this year, and he got that big win, and nothing happened with it. So definitely that's a concern there. And then going back to Adam Cole versus MJF, this is very interesting
because they're obviously wrestling in the buy-in, and then they're wrestling each other in the main event, which is kind of
okay.
Really
first thing first, I'm going to say that the stupidest part of my language. That is stupid. Why?
And you're okay on that language. On Sportzwire, the wrestlers say other things a little loud, tougher, but no, that's fine. But stupid's okay.
That is the stupidest thing I am seeing. You're going to have a tag team match early in the show or on a pre-show, and then later we're going to go to the main event. These two are going to wrestle. It doesn't make sense. I remember WWE did this in 2019 at Clash Champion, United Champion, whatever they're calling it back then. They had Strowman and Seth Rollins first defend the tag team titles. They lost them. Then they had them in a tag team match. It just didn't make sense. The other thing I'm going to say about MJF for Adam Cole, both guys need this win. MJF, his contract coming up. We don't know what direction he's going to go, but it sounds like he's returning. Adam Cole's been up and down. My fear in this match is whoever loses this match, they're really going to fall down the ladder here.
Well, I think MJF's been champion, 8 months now? Like almost 9 months. I mean, somebody was joking. He's been champion longer than he's had defenses. You've had Adam Cole.
More title defense appearances than him at this point.
Right. Yeah. So the point is he's been champion actually longer than he's had title defenses, which was my point. Adam Cole obviously had come back a few months ago after his injury. He was, certainly built up, and he's had a lot of hype, and he certainly fits that AEW kind of wrestling fan, but he kind of does need a win here. So you have to go somewhere with this. And you did mention FTR and the Young Bucks. Obviously, Young Bucks have re-signed. FTR, obviously, the darlings of really tag team wrestling. I mean, does FTR retain?
I think FTR retains. I think the Young Bucks, this is just more of going to be a great match. I think FTR, they've showed they can carry the tag team division. The Young Bucks, with how things are working out with Punk right now, and the fact that these guys can't even talk legally, talk to each other due to legal ramification. FTR, you can't give the Young Bucks, because if you want FTR to make appearance on Collisions, they can. The Young Bucks, it gets really interesting in whole sense, and down the line, it's going to get more interesting. The one final thing I'm going to say about AEW Punk is, sorry, I called you Punk there, Tom. Last thing I want to say about AEW.
You call me a Punk. I mean, I've been called worse by wrestlers in the last week.
One thing I want to say, last thing about AEW, we are not going to get CM Punk and FTR versus Omega and the Young Bucks anytime soon. It's not
No,
happening.
we spoke about that. That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen.
I got the rumors, people saying because this tag team match, oh, they're plotting the seed. This is long-term storytelling. I'm like, they're doing this match because these two, the Young Bucks and FTR, they don't have any beef. They are professionals. They're, as I said earlier, they're literally legal.
Listen, Bischoff said it best about AEW. He said this on the podcast, and it made a lot of sense to me. Obviously, not to say that I'm in the wrestling business, but we do enough wrestling on coverage. I know who's who at this point. It's one man that's driving the wedge. It's one man in that locker room. It's one against them, and that's Punk. Mm-hmm. Regardless of whatever you think about him, we spoke about him. He is the most spoke about man in wrestling, but he obviously has done things to put himself in the position. Whether you like him or not, there's no question that, to quote Mr. Bischoff, controversy does create cash, and he has brought cash when he's there, but to what cost at the locker room? That's that. I want to ask you one more thing on AEW before I get to closing thoughts. As the rest of the guys come on, I wanted to do at least a little bit on wrestling because we are really Sportswire wrestling at this point. We are a wrestling station at this point. I mean, we can't deny it. Sting. How much more are we going to see Sting? I heard something the other day. Well, if AEW lets his contract runs out, he's okay. I see him in a coffin match. Then I heard somebody the other day say, well, Sting will just keep going. It's amazing what he's doing. I mean, so what do you make of this coffin match here, and how much more do we see Sting in a ring?
This coffin match is very interesting with Sting because with Sting, he hasn't had any. He's had some interesting matches. We saw a little while earlier. He went through a table. And he's still doing well. It's like for someone at his age, and we saw
he couldn't bump for a while. Remember after the match years ago against Seth Rollins, it was thought he was done. He couldn't bump again, and he's had about 2.5 years in AEW. I know it's obviously been very controlled, no question, but he's still done a lot. I mean, for a guy who's 64 now.
Yeah, no, he's definitely done a lot of great work. And we've seen older wrestlers, Hogan, Flair.
But not to this level. Hogan and Flair, I mean, certainly Flair retired 1,000 times. Hogan really wasn't active much if you want to go back to like 2005 SummerSlam. But Sting is 64. I mean, he looks in phenomenal shape. But like he's been kind of going and going and going almost. I know, again, a lot of it's controlled, but like a lot of his contemporaries from 25, 30 years ago, they still haven't done anywhere, I think, to what he's doing out there.
Yeah, exactly. This is good. It's going to be very interesting how much Sting has in the left in the tank, and it's going to be up to Sting who he's going to work with. You've seen most of his matches. He hasn't really had any big one-on-one matches.
You know what they call those in wrestling? You'll appreciate this. They call those garbage matches.
Yeah. Yeah, they've mostly had tag team matches, and that's where I guess you can see if he needs to step out or anything. Because
you know what you know what they also call? They call that when you have a match like that, you are basically masking that wrestler's limited or liabilities at this point. And that's why you see a lot of those matches with Sting.
And it's very true in Sting's at his age. That's where you're getting from him. You don't want him to have one terrible bump and then he's paralyzed. And that's going to, especially in this world today. You don't want to be known as AEW did not want to be known as the company that ruined Sting's life.
Especially AEW in that audience.
And the one last thing I want to say about Punk, Tom, before we go, I remember Triple H actually throwing a promo on this in 2011 to CM Punk. He said about Vince McMahon will take a beating or do whatever for business. Punk has shown he can't let bygone be bygone. He won't let things go. He'll cause controversy for himself or cause problems. He won't let it do for the good of the business. I think that might be the problem there in AEW.
I don't know. Bischoff made a good point. I know it's Bischoff, right? I know it's Bischoff. Eric Bischoff, obviously another controversial figure, but he made a lot of sense in that CM Punk kind of puts himself out there almost like on purpose. Like he, like when he visited WWE a few months ago before he returned, he came into the locker room or he was watching backstage, whatever it was, right? And he kind of does it almost to himself. He's just doing it where he puts himself over and not everybody else around him. And I think that's kind of his problem. I mean, I guess we'll have to see. CM Punk is certainly going to be a name we're always talking about. Sting is certainly a name also that's always going to be spoken about. And obviously very curious about the future of him. And speaking to people who are old, I just saw a commercial for Jeff Jarrett out there. Here's a guy who looks, almost like the same as 20 plus years ago. That's remarkable in itself. Jeff Jarrett looks literally just like he did back in like 1999 or 2000. And I want to say hello to Mr. Ace Reed, who's also a host of a podcast. He is the host of the Wired Up podcast. He is my guest that came on the show last week. He's the man behind Backyard Elite Wrestling, and he's in Australia right now, and he's 14 hours ahead of us, which means, Randy, he's at 12:40, correct me if I'm wrong, 12:44 p.m. Australian time. So Ace is tuned in. Ace is a huge wrestling fan. He also does podcasts, so you can follow him on Instagram at _backyard_elite_wrestling. He's also on YouTube as well. So I'm going to give you closing thoughts. Obviously, I'm going to bring the guys on here shortly. And anything else you want to plug, share, say. And obviously, I enjoy the wrestling talk. Maybe we'll talk more of the fallout from next week's Raw and obviously SmackDown, as well as AEW's big show coming up in Wembley. And the floor is yours, my friend.
Thanks, Tom. Just I'll wrap it up in a few points here. Really going to be interesting next what they're going to do with Roman. Is it going to be more of him now just fighting with the Usos before SummerSlam, before he eventually not SummerSlam, Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season? Very interesting what they're actually going to do with Cody. And the last thing is the tag team titles, men's and women's, are both in a little bit DK.
I saw because Chelsea Green is basically without a partner because Sonya Deville has to get a ACL surgery, which is a painful surgery. That's a surgery.
She's worked hard for that. She's been it's really unfortunate for her. And Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn seem like both guys might be. Kevin Owens had the knee injury. Sami Zayn, you saw his elbow was really messed up.
Yeah.
So definitely the tag team titles, both sides.
Well, did you even see with Chelsea Green that Mick Foley said if he had 30 years younger and like 100 pounds less that he would kind of enter, and they're doing almost like I guess on Twitter it's like a Simon Cowell contest for Chelsea. So we'll have to see. I would love to see actually her husband actually be the other partner, but I don't think that's going to happen.
The interesting person I'm thinking that might be the partner, I know the rumors are out there, Nia Jax might be making a return. That would be interesting if she would be her partner.
Yeah, I mean, she came back, at the Rumble months ago, and she's gotten into great shape, and she's kind of ready, I think, to return to the ring. I always loved Nia Jax, so that could be a good one here. All right, so we'll have to see. We'll definitely talk all about that next week. We can certainly follow you as well on Instagram and Twitter at Randy Dillon. That is DHILON. And good stuff, Randy. I acknowledge you as our Sportswire Radio wrestling analyst, and I'm looking forward, my friend, to speak with you next week. And this was a lot of fun. Good job.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure. Have a good one.
All right, that was Mr. Randy Dillon, and we're joined here. We get two guys here tonight. That is Justin Gianelli, the host of the Baseball Banter, and the Brute Force Bradley Weiss, who's wearing what kind of shirt you got on there, Brad, today? Youth Basketball Academy from Long Island Nets, New York Liberty, and I think that's Northwell Hospital, right? HSS, right? Am I thinking Northwell?
HSS Hospital Successful Surgery.
Yes, I know that very well, and I got Chris Pizzea here, and I'm waiting for the contest guy. Rob Marasco's got the contest here, and yeah, Yankees, Mets. I mean, I ain't going to spend a whole day on it here. I mean, so we're going to get a little bit on it because I'm ready to go to football. I got to be honest. I'm going to do some obituaries tonight on the New York baseball season because it's time to move on here. I'm waiting for Rob Marasca. His device is not connected because I think he's got a contest. But we'll certainly talk a few minutes on the Yankees and Mets. But I guess, Brad, you were proven right on the Mets. Obviously, maybe we'll let Rob come back on here and spend a few minutes on the Mets and kind of recap the deadline for them. Then I'll go into the Yankees, who I still don't think much of them either making the playoffs. I know they're sort of alive, but I just don't think, yeah. And what's the shirt say tonight, Chris? Giancarlo Stanton crushes?
Baseballs.
Well, he has crushed baseball. He doesn't run the baseball.
Yeah, not many, but.
And congratulations. I saw your daughter's getting ready for college. I think that's what I saw on Facebook.
Yeah, she's leaving less than 2 weeks.
Well, we have a guest coming on, Brad, Wednesday afternoon that's sort of going through the same thing as Chris's daughter, and James D. Simone, our buddy. All right, we're joined here by Rob Marasca. Rob, good to see you. Obviously got the full lineup here. Going to spend a few minutes. I'm not going to spend all day on baseball tonight because baseball season, I'm going to write an obituary on it pretty much. But you got a contest, so I want to get it out of the way so I can kind of spend a few minutes on the Mets because I'm not going to spend much longer with them here today and maybe even for the rest of the season. So give me who's won this contest.
Okay, yeah, we got a winner of the Otani Tops Now card. It's his name is Keith Dutton, and he's from Eucapia, California. And on Twitter or X, whatever it is,
yep.
He's at Evans Daddy 25. So
repeat his
name's
name again and where he's from again, so we can get that out there.
Keith Dutton from Ucapia, California.
Okay, all right. Congratulations, Keith. Obviously, you're up there in California, so you hope that we're out there to give you that contest. So, very good stuff here on that. And going over here to the New York Mets, obviously haven't spoke with them because last week we were preempted by Sportswire wrestling coverage, and we're most likely going to be preempted again. Going to give you the heads up. We'll be back the following week because we have Craven Rage, who has not been back here in a month, and he is going to face a swarm of people. But that's for a different show for a different time. But Mets, obviously, I'll recap their post deadline. I'll kind of give what the guys think about it. I'll go with you, Rob, first. And Mets made some moves. I know some guys last time we spoke, we were on the air, and some guys thought maybe they would stand pat. Maybe they would try to make one last push, but they didn't do that. They moved, obviously, some big chips, including Verlander, Scherzer, also moved a few guys before we were on the air and after we were on the air, and the likes of David Robertson, Mark Canha, Tommy Pham. So for you, Rob Maraska, was it the right move for the Mets? Did the Mets get the right prospects back, and where does this team go forward long term?
Well, they definitely got some good prospects and built up the farm system. Getting Acuna Jr.'s brother and Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford, those are some decent names. But as we know in Mets history, minor league ball players don't mean anything because we know what happens to a lot of them that come up to the Mets.
We got a guy, Ernest Dove, who says he's the prospect hugger. He tells everybody, yeah, these guys are going to be great. And then meanwhile, they've probably got less followers than I have at this point. Not to disparage them, but that's kind of how it goes. It's the world of minor league baseball. I mean,
well, Ernest is good. He's very optimistic, and he's some of the play. He
reminds me of a few people I've worked for that have run for office in politics. Yeah, we're gonna win, and then on election day we lose, and that's kind of how it goes. Unfortunately, we love Ernest though.
But let's face it, the Mets were going nowhere no matter what they were going to do. Keeping Verlander, keeping Max, whatever. They weren't going anywhere. And you know what? I don't understand what, they're putting out a product now that's, except for Alonso, unwatchable. Okay,
yeah, I got to be honest. I don't even know if I'm going to watch another game the rest of the season. I got to be honest.
It's on, why didn't they bring up Luke Voigt at least to give someone? He was hitting home runs in Syracuse, doing all right. So what do? They let him walk. They keep Vogelbach in. Why didn't they just bring Voigt up?
I think they do that just so Brad can kind of get annoyed for the rest of the season. That's kind of the
I know. This guy. Why bother even just giving an automatic out? Don't even make him go up to the plate because it's ridiculous now. And you know what? You're right. Who wants to watch these games? I'm watching these games, and it's like I'm watching them, but I'm doing other stuff too at the same time because I just cannot stomach, Mendick, Ortega. What the hell is this product? I mean, come on already. Who am I watching? I'll go watch the Little League game, It's more exciting than that. It's crazy. And you know what? This season's over. Who knows what's going on next season? I have no idea. Today, Ken Rosenthal from The Athletic said the Mets are going to be in on Ohtani. But is Ohtani?
Yeah, it was on the Daily News, the front page of the sports section of the Daily News this morning. It had that the Yankees and Mets were going to go in on Ohtani, and it was all over Twitter. But I don't know. I mean, he's pretty much said in the past he doesn't want to come to the East Coast.
Yeah, he has, and it's just crazy. What should have been a great season has turned out to be one of the biggest messes and flops in New York Mets history, and I've seen.
I think in New York baseball, at least in my lifetime, with these two teams, I mean, this has been the most lethargic year I could ever remember watching baseball. I know I got some guys here that probably lived through the 80s and maybe some of the early 90s, but I mean, between both of these teams, I mean, I just don't know much more else you could say. Obviously, look, Verlander and Scherzer, if you're not competing, they're 40 years old. Try to get something for them. Canha and Pham, we spoke about till we're blue in the face. Robertson, same thing. I mean, maybe you could have moved an Ottavino, Starling Marte, but even then, these guys aren't playing much. And For you, Justin, obviously, I'll ask you the same question. We haven't spoke since the deadline. I know we were speaking, and the Mets at the time were playing maybe a little bit better. They had a better month at the time, but obviously the decision was made to move Scherzer. I think we were on the air when Scherzer was getting moved, and then Verlander got moved a few days later at the deadline. We moved some other parts, but obviously going forward, I mean, where does this team go? Certainly for the rest of the season, we know the answer, but even long term, is they're going to have a lot of questions going forward.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you could start with the pitching staff. I mean, what is the 2024 pitching staff going to look like? Besides Kodai Senga and Jose Quintana, you have a lot of question marks. I thought if you looking at tonight's game, I thought early on Tyler McGill looked sharp, but kind of did in the fourth inning, and that kind of snowballed on him, and so you're still seeing that inconsistency from those guys, but how are they going to fill in the back end of this rotation? Now, by keeping guys like Brooks Raley and Adam Ottavino, you do have part of a bullpen for next year, right? Because you get the return of Edwin Diaz. Brooks Raley's under contract. Ottavino's got a player option that I'm pretty certain he'll pick up. He's a New York guy. He's talked about just wanting to pretty much finish his career in New York City. So I would doubt Adam Ottavino goes anywhere. And you kind of just go from there. He's been up and down so far, and I'm not sure what his status is for next year. But you got a guy like Phil Bickford, who's got a good, lively fastball, just hasn't quite put it all together. We saw the good in that save against the Cubs. We saw the bad in the first couple of games he appeared in. So, the problem with relief pitching is you're going to get a lot of hit or miss kind of guys. It's very rare to just have that lockdown dude. And, how they fill out the pitching staff, I think, really is the main question. But now also some of the questions leak into the field, right? What do the Mets do at third base? Brett Beatty has severely struggled, obviously, as evidenced by the sending him down back to AAA. Mark Vientos has looked a little bit better defensively, but I still don't really think of him very highly as a third baseman, and his bat has not been all that good. You got some lockdown spots like first base, catcher, shortstop, center field. A lot of lockdown spots. What are you doing for left field next year? Is it going to be Brett Beatty? Is it going to be Ronnie Mauricio? What are you going to do with those guys? And and obviously you're going to have Starling Marte. 2 more years. I still think if he could get to the off season healthy, I do think we could see one more good year out of Starling Marte. I don't think he's completely done. I think that the surgeries he had in the offseason, I think, took so much of a toll. He probably should have missed the first half of this year. But he was out there playing every day and playing very poorly, not looking the same running in right field. But really, after what we've seen, a lot of the questions is going to leak into the pitching staff. Now, the guys they got in return, whether you talk about Acuna, whether you talk about Gilbert or Clifford, or even some of the lower guys that they got in exchange, like Canna, you get Justin Jarvis, a pitcher that's a AAA. Are we going to see him at the end of this year? I mean, maybe. Acuna and Gilbert could push for the big league roster, I think, next year. Even though Gilbert's ETA is 2025, I think he could push for the roster next year. Because Gilbert and Clifford, the 2 guys they got from Houston, are 2 guys that I've been ultra impressed by early on. And I think the Mets may have hit a home run with these guys.
All right, we'll certainly see. I mean, certainly not encouraging words there in the Brute Force. Brad Weiss, obviously, good to be with you. Obviously, to be the first of 2 spots with you. I think Wednesday will be a more exciting show for me than this one. I got to be honest. This is kind of talking New York baseball right now when there's really nothing to really talk about other than obituaries. I mean, I know we got some diehard baseball guys here on this show, but I mean, I just don't see, Brad, a point to spend another minute watching this Met team. Certainly, I'm sure the off season there'll be a lot to discuss. I mean, maybe there are some things, I guess to Justin's point, Edwin Diaz comes back next season. We'll see. Maybe you make some efforts to bring back a David Robertson. Okay, fine. But you got questions now with the starting rotation. You got questions to me at the top of the lineup. And, I don't know much more else to say, Brad. I'm going to give you the opportunity now to address the team after the deadlines. We haven't been here since then. And what else? Anything else is on your mind? You're able to share it here with us for the audience.
Yeah, let me try to put something together here. But I want to preface my comments by making sure that everybody gets their proper perspective on this by me putting in order what I was watching just tonight. All right, number one on what I was watching, all right, was the New York Liberty winning yet again. All right, and by the way, I know I've said it, but please somebody listen. Okay, stop watching the Mets and watch a team that's actually good. Okay, in the New York Liberty, they won again tonight. They're 23-6. They're a phenomenal product, led by some great players. So if you want to, get the Met game off, put them on. They were number one for me. Number two is the Little League World Series. I'm very upset that Massapequa lost tonight. They're from Long Island, so I was upset. Definitely seen the kids cry. It was not fun either, and I actually recognized a couple. So definitely disappointing there, but they were number two. Number three was the Detroit Lions against the Giants preseason game, okay? And I realize that these are the order of things I'm watching right now, okay? And one thing that I'm not watching, which was number 5 or 4, whatever you want to put on the list, is the New York Mets. They're not worth watching. I mean, Rob, you gave me some garbage names. I'll give you another one. How about Arauz, or whatever the heck his name, Arauz, all right? All these guys that I pop my television on and they're up at bat. I mean, I cannot do it anymore. It's depressing. I don't even know why people are showing up to these games. What are they going to watch? I mean, my mom, of all people, who doesn't even watch that much sports, okay, is telling me, what could these people be doing? Watching the flies go by or whatever? I mean, there's nothing to watch on the field. This team is garbage.
Nothing to watch.
This game is garbage. I mean, the pitching is garbage. I mean, these names that are coming in the game, I mean, they're a waste of time. I mean, the batting order, I mean, please. Listen, I know Lindor and Alonso have been better, and Nimmo got on base today, but, I mean, they scored no runs against Charlie Morton, I mean, and the Braves. I mean, listen, I know the Braves, they can't score anyway on a given year, in a good year. But, listen, I'm not going to watch them with this garbage product. On top of that, you want me to be Mr. Optimism for a second, Kate? Sure, you got rid of your players, and Steve Cohen, at least he did what he said he was going to do. He said if we win games, then we're gonna buy, and if we don't win, we're gonna sell. And he sold because we didn't win.
There's no reason. Listen, we spoke about it. Some guys here were like, well, they're starting to turn the corner. The National League's weak.
But listen, let me just say this quick before I get out of this Mets garbage. Okay, listen. I understand that Billy Epler looks good because of the players that he got and these trades and all that, but I'm going to repeat what I've said for weeks. Billy Epler is not to be trusted, and I still don't trust him. Okay, one of the reasons, right? I mean, yeah, he got rid of guys. He got some nice play, but I don't trust him. I still don't trust him. I still don't trust him with turning this team around next year. I mean, there's so much garbage. How are you going to fill all these holes? I mean, a bullpen is comprised of a lot of people. We only have a few. And by the way, if Edwin Diaz plays this year, the Mets should be put on probation. I mean, there is no way he should even show up.
I was reading that today, and I guess Showalter said, well, if he could play, it's a
no, that's nonsense. For what? For all these games that mean nothing? I mean, I
disagree. I actually very much disagree with this. I think it would be good for him.
But what does that prove, though? What is
because what it proves to him is he can get back on the mound and he could feel good about himself and feel normal.
He feels good about himself.
But
he's had a
whole year. But think about it. He's had a whole year of recovery. If he gets into a couple games at the end of the year, he could go into
with this garbage product.
Mind.
Well, it probably won't be for a save situation, but
they're not winning. They're not winning.
I agree with Justin. I think he should come if he's able to pitch. The last couple weeks, last 3 weeks of the season.
I want to bring up something more
3-4 times.
entertaining. I want to bring up some more entertaining things because really talking about Edwin Diaz pitching for like 4 games in the regular season when the Mets are going to be like 20 games under 500 is really not entertaining to me. I got to be honest. So Anthony Finkel, who's in Southwest Florida. Now, do you live in Southwest Florida, or are you just in Southwest Florida? I can never really keep up. What's up, fellas? Checking in. Now, I have a good one here, Brad, just for you. And by the way, I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Omen Black. Omen, it's his show here on Sportswire, so I want to say hello to Omen. And Omen, I know, is entertaining some guests who are friends of ours from, how can I put this, in the state of Wisconsin, because he's in Iowa. And are you friends still with Omen Black, the Brute Force? Because obviously our friends checking in from the state of Iowa would like to know if you and Omen are still good friends. Anything happen there of sorts? Anything, you know?
I don't know what this thing is about our friendship. There's been nothing to break it. So, honestly, I am great friends with Owen Black. There's no reason not to be friends with him. I mean, I know everybody wants to get on me about those comments for a few weeks ago that might have towed the line, but I never tried to step on Omen's toes or anything like that. I
don't think you'd be able to, because he's. I mean, I know you're.
That's what I'm saying. So,
no. Actually, I was gonna say figuratively. I don't know if you could actually step on them, because I know you're taller than Omen, but Omen is 385. You might be like 235, but he's like 385. So that's.
Yeah. No. Listen. We are good friends here. All right. Listen,
okay.
We are good friends. Omen's the man, and again, at least I would definitely rather see Omen Black winning, wrestling matches right now over watching the Mets. I mean,
well, he's probably going to be focusing on a big wrestling match tomorrow that'll be out there again, where it'll be kind of a Midwest rivalry there. And I know Mr. Black will certainly be, I'm sure, preparing for that with those gentlemen. Those gentlemen know who they are. They're probably in the background listening with Mr. Black. But, Chris, I'll transition to the Yankees in a second. I want to give, by the way, one more plug to the IMF. Go follow them on YouTube at IMF Wrestling 666. They're working on Summer Bash, which is almost like the backyard wrestling version of Ozfest. It'll be July 5th to the 7th, 2024. I know our good buddy, Mr. Darkron, was over on James Taylor's show, and I'm sure I'll have to watch that. Omen, don't spoil it for me. I'm sure you guys were on Mr. Taylor's show, so I'll watch that after we're off the air. So go give them a plug on YouTube at IMF Wrestling 666. But Chris, I mean, obviously the Yankees, I guess, sort of stood pat. They made the one move. I'll come back to the Yankees in a second. I'll ask you separately on the Yankees, who did get a win, and I guess are alive for what it's worth. But I mean, I'll get to them in a second. But you all right with what the Mets did? You feel okay or differently compared to these guys on where the Mets go from here in the next, I guess, let's say 12 months from now?
Did they really have an option? They could have stuck it. They could have stayed with the guys and just tried to fight it back into the playoff race, but it just seemed like it wasn't happening. Just like with the Yankees, they should have sold. They should have sold some players. I'm not saying sold the whole farm, but I thought they should have sold some players, but they didn't. But with the Mets, with an owner like Cohen, you're able to kind of buy your way out of not a mistake, but out of this problem you're going to have with I don't want to say mistake, because listen, signing Scherzer, signing Verlander, hey, that wasn't a bad idea, but you
watch it. It was a mistake though, because if you think about it, right? I mean, Scherzer, for the most part, in big spots, was very disappointing. I mean, Verlander was okay for us. I mean, he was turning the corner, but I mean, the results were supposed to be this team was to have the reverse record right now, at the very least, and they don't.
But and you got to remember, you also had the offense was probably the bigger problem, right?
Yeah,
and the bullpen. So sure. Losing Diaz obviously was huge. And listen, whatever. Anyway. The selling, I thought, was probably the right way to do it, because Cohen's the only owner in all of baseball, in any sport, really, for this matter, that would take on that kind of money to just eat it. Forget about spending it and buying it, but to
maybe
eat
the Dodgers would be close. Maybe
I don't know if they would. That's over 100 million, whatever the amount is. That's some crazy amount of money. I don't know if they would have did that, but listen, they're able to do it with Cohen. Now you got to go into next offseason, fill your holes again, and hope that a couple of these guys that you got, the prospects that they.
My problem though with the Mets, and I'm going to stay with you in a second, but my general problem with the Mets is, and I was speaking with somebody earlier today, which is why I was kind of dreading this segment, and they were saying, if you go on Sport Tracker and you look at the free agent list, like, it's not a great free agent class outside of Ohtani this year. So like,
no, but you know what? Now you have also trade pieces now that you could use to trade if you want to go that route. You know what I mean? If you want to stick with the young guys, hey, then you're in for a longer road to get to that point. So it's going to be a juggling act, but hopefully they can figure it out.
They better juggle well.
Listen, it's not going to be easy because of the division you guys are in, right? Because the Braves are right there, and the Braves are locked up for the
What
next
about the
few
other
years.
teams in the division? They're better than us too. I
Right.
mean,
No,
the
absolutely.
Marlins are in a better position. The Phillies are in a better position.
Well, you're beloved. At least, Brad, you got the Phillies this year.
Listen, I don't want to talk about them. But listen, you know what, Chris? You talk about holes, by the way. Okay, and there are a ton of holes, but you got to fill the black hole too. I mean, there's a lot of holes. I mean, there's.
Right.
Well, I'm going to get to the
rotation.
I mean, I'm going
Right?
to
And the last thing I'm going to say is this: I'm pretty sure, and you talk about young players, right? You talk about young players. Shouldn't the objective of the rest of this season be to play the young players and give them a chance to play? If by the way, one of the worst things about this whole thing has been Daniel Vogelbach still being on the roster. It's an embarrassment to society. How the hell is he on the roster?
I have to imagine. Does he know? I hate to use the political term. When something bad goes or somebody knows something bad, anybody will use the term, they know where the bodies are. That's the term. So they'll use this term in politics when somebody knows something before. I'm going to say this on the air. I'm going to say it very carefully because take it from me from experience. When somebody's about to be like indicted or somebody's usually like something bad's about to happen, the expression will be, why does somebody hang around or they get in a certain spot? They'll say, well, they know where the bodies are. Maybe that's Vogelbach.
I guess, because again, we didn't know what his worth was when the team was looking to be good, but now really, what is it to mentor Danny Mendick? I mean, really, like that's what it's for. I mean,
and he's making nothing, Vogelbach, right? He's making like $1 million. It's at this point another $1 million.
I'd rather give a roster spot to somebody else. I mean, please give it to someone else. Let me see another young player.
Right. I think it was Chris that said before, why did they never call up Luke Voigt if he kept
I said it, yeah.
runs?
Right. No, Rob said that, not me.
Why did they never give him chance? How about this kid Luke Ritter in Syracuse? He's got 23 home runs. I think he's got the most home runs of any Mets minor leaguer this year.
Or the shortstop, Mauricio, whatever his name is.
I don't think they're calling him up. And I don't believe they think that he's that good. I think that's the thing.
Wow.
Right. But regardless of all this, Justin makes the point. Like, there's guys in AAA, give them a shot. I mean, instead you're running out.
Nothing to lose.
Dead weight.
And you know what? It'll also give you kind of a preview, like, hey, let's see what they got. And then going into the offseason, okay, all right.
You
deep
think,
inside,
Brad,
you'll know I'm going to trade this guy, I'm going to keep this guy.
Because maybe you fill a hole. Because listen, again, you got Arauz and DJ Stewart. These guys aren't filling any holes. I mean,
Brad, let me ask you a question. Brad, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'll have a side comments from Omen and Soldier. I'll leave them out for a few minutes. But let me ask you a question, because you've obviously been through a coaching change, and you've played. You played at a very high level in athletics, and I covered you when you were a college athlete. I'm trying to put this in a way that's the most careful phrase I'm going to put it in. You think that maybe certain players are being played because maybe Buck feels that way, or conversely, Buck doesn't feel that way, and regardless of the outcome, even though Cone has said Buck's coming back, maybe there's something there between Buck and management. You've been in this situation before. We don't comment about Kevin Spann being let go, but is there anything there to that?
I don't think there's anything with Buck. I'll be honest with you. I think he's going to be the manager next year. And again, I don't blame Vogelbach being on the roster on Showalter. That's not his position.
Right, but he's playing a lot, and somebody's making that decision.
And again, the guy who cannot be trusted is making this decision, Billy Epler.
Billy Epler, yes.
And that, again, this is a foolish decision. I mean, it really is. That's why I continue to complain about him because, listen, Showalter, as we said earlier in the season, is just going to play the players that are on the roster and that he could have on the roster. And the players that were on the roster have not performed. That is not his fault. I don't think this is a situation where Buck is not I think he's trying to do things, but he doesn't have the players to perform. Where I'll admit in my situation, Tom, we did not try to get players to help us win or anything like that. And that is why our coach got run out the door. In this sense,
there was a lot of other things I don't want to get into on.
But in this sense, I just want to use that as an example because in this sense, it's not Buck Showalter. It's Billy Epler putting, Stewart and other guys on the roster that really shouldn't be here.
And I fully agree with that. I just wanted to put it out there to see what you thought. And I do want to come back to Chris in a second. Before I do that, Omen and Soldier, are you saying or going on about the world title situation there? I'll save that for when the guys come back on. I think we have a show Sunday, Omen, I might be seeing you on. So I don't know who the guest might be. It was supposed to be one guest, but we'll figure that out later on. But, Chris, I do want to talk about the Yankees for a second. The Yankees win tonight. They beat the Marlins. We're pretty much record-wise in the same position as the Yankees, but they're obviously, because of the National League wildcard situation, ironically, maybe if the Mets did hang in there, the Mets maybe have 4 or 5 more wins under their belt, and it's a different outcome, but I don't think they were going anywhere regardless. But the Yankees do get a win. They're alive, but, nothing has showed me. You said last week, 2 weeks ago, you had said in the 10-game stretch where the Yankees played Baltimore, Tampa, and Houston, they had to go a minimum of 6-4. They went 4-6. Now, obviously, since then, we've played a few more games, and we are where we are right now.
Not good either.
So what do you think? And, they get a reprieve tonight. Judge hits a moonshot. Stanton comes back, gets a couple hits here tonight, but I still think this team, by and large, and I'll give the guys the obligatory thoughts on the Yankees before we move on, but I don't know, really. I think that this team has kind of hit the Titanic pretty much.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think technically, they're still alive, obviously. They're only, 4 games out? Yeah. But they got to pass 3 teams to get into that playoff spot now.
And they're all double digits over 500 right now, these teams.
Yeah, and you know what? They've been a 500 team, not just for this year, but for the last 200 games. They're a 500 team. Yeah, that's all they are.
Crazy start last year. Yeah, pretty much 500.
And with all the injuries, and I got more bad news today with Cortez going out too. Yep. He's probably done for the year. So I don't think this team, or I shouldn't say I think, I know this team is not capable of going on a run like 9 out of 10 or 12 out of 15. They're just not capable of it. So if you can't do that, you're not going to jump teams. You might keep pace with them like what they're doing. But in order to pass these guys, you got to beat them in that 10-game stretch I told you about.
4-6.
Right, 4-6. I knew it. Once that happened, you lost 2 out of 3 against the Orioles, 2 out of 3 against the Rays, and then you split. Yeah. If you were in a playoff spot, that's okay.
Nothing losing 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. Come on.
That's embarrassing. I agree. That's why I have no faith in this team. I don't know. Some people's like, oh, you never know. No, you do know now because you've seen it for enough time. It's not like they've had a bad month. They've had a bad last 200 games. And on top of that, they've had all these injuries that are just mounting.
We spoke after the All-Star break, and the Yankees played St. Louis, Colorado, and lost those series.
Yeah.
And to me, that was those teams are basically bottom feeders in the National League. I know St. Louis has played better of late, but
there's still a team you got to beat.
Right? You got to win at least 4 of those 6 games. And
you know what? And getting back to the trade deadline, the Mets did something. They sold. They said, okay, you know what? Throw the white flag up. We're done. Whatever. Ate some contracts. The Yankees did nothing. That was the stupid thing. You either go for it or you don't, or you sell, right? And they did nothing, which is the worst move.
Could you say, though, now I kind of agree because they kind of stood pat. They made the one minor move. But let's say conversely, the Angels, made these big moves and they went south right afterwards.
But you know what? I appreciate that. You got to, as a fan and as a team, you got to appreciate. The players were probably like, yeah, that's great. We're all in. We got Ohtani. We got Trout coming back soon. Hoppy's coming back in a few weeks. So yeah, that's got to reinvent the team. Just like Brad will tell you, that has to be great for a team and the teammates to be like, yeah, we're in it. It didn't work. Obviously, they lost 7 or 8 straight, but still, I think that's what you got to do. You're either in or you're out. Not doing anything made absolutely no sense, and that's what upset a lot of Yankee fans. Listen, if we're in. Make a move.
I was listening to you and Patrick, and then I was listening to on Sportswire, obviously the Stripe Chronicle guys, obviously Donald,
I'm sure
Rob,
they said the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right?
They were not happy at all with Cashman. I mean,
No.
those guys, you've been on this show. They've been with us here many times in the past, and they were, they expressed their, anger with him pretty much, But I mean, I don't know what more they could have did. I mean, for you, Rob, I'll spend a few minutes on the Yankees with the rest of the guys here. I mean, they win tonight, but it's really been a lethargic run for a while now. I think Chris kind of said it's been a 200 game or so run. Yeah, it's about that, right? You had 80 games last year. We're about 120 in now. Right now, it's about 200 games. About really a 500 ball club, and they win tonight. They're alive, but I mean, you got to really win now at this point, probably based on where we are in the season, guys. Probably another 30 games, 30, 31 games. Means you got to play almost 650 ball the rest of the way, and I just don't see it happening. I mean, what do you think, Rob?
Yeah, well, I agree with Chris. The Yankees they did nothing. They made one minor move. I mean, he's right. It's like they're leaving, the players and the fans in limbo. Like, what's going on? We're not buyers, we're not sellers, we're just standing pat, and we're not that good right now. So they're not, at least, you know what? At least the Mets did, they became sellers. Cohen could eat all that money, so it's cool. But the Yankees, really, what did they do? They're in it mathematically, but where would they be going if they made that final wild card position anyway? Where are they going? I mean, Texas made moves, Houston made moves, all these other teams, and I agree with Chris too. With the Angels, at least the Angels showed the team and the fans, we're going to go for it. It didn't work out. It started with getting Escobar from the Mets. Then they made the other moves. It didn't work out, but they tried. And I got to give them credit, and, they might have done that too also to show Ohtani, listen, we're going to be all in. We're going to do what we have to do to try to win. And it just didn't work out for them. The Yankees did nothing.
I guess the only thing you could say, now correct me if I'm wrong, if the Yankees somehow win this last wild card, wouldn't they get the Central Division winner?
Yes.
Yes.
The 3 seed gets the Central
So,
Division. And
I
that
guess
could be the Twins. Now, normally that's a good thing for the Yankees because
that was going to be my next point.
But not this season. Because the Twins beat us.
I agree with Chris. I mean,
Well, my point was if you're one of these teams right now, even if you're the Yankees, who I agree have struggled this season against Minnesota, but it's still a Minnesota team that's pretty much going to have 85 wins this year, right? 84, 85 wins and win this division. And if you make that last wild card spot, whoever you might be, if you're a Seattle, even if you're a Boston, you're one of these teams, you kind of feel like you could beat Minnesota because they're just almost kind of like there. They're just the obligatory participation prize for winning the division. But, for you, Justin, Yankees, pretty much kind of stood pat. They made the one minor move, but they're kind of in, as kind of my guest was last night on Sportswire, Mr. Judgment, the prophet of purgatory. The Yankees are right now in baseball purgatory at the moment because they're not done, but they're pretty much not going anywhere. But they are, as Rob pointed out, mathematically alive. So to me, they're in baseball purgatory right now for the rest of the season. So did the Yankees do it the right way, or would you have did differently?
Yeah, I would have done this totally differently. It's one thing. To you could appreciate a fan, an ownership, a team that has some clear direction, whether it's going north or going south. Like you guys talked about with the Angels going all in, or whether the Mets going all in the other way by selling. At least those teams gave you a clear sense of direction. Whether we think it works or not, that's a whole totally different story. Obviously, the Angels have struggled, and the Mets got prospects. Who knows what they turn out to be, right? The worst thing you could be is indecisive. And even if you read some of the things that got leaked out, a few days after the trade deadline, executives and scouts were saying that the Yankees were hard to deal with because they didn't know whether to go for it, whether to sell. They didn't know what they were doing, right? So that level of confusion right there just basically is a symbolism of the 2023 Yankees. You don't know what they are. Like, they're not really a good baseball team, but they also got one of the best players in the world in Aaron Judge, and he's back healthy.
Hit a
You got-
moonshot
and you
tonight.
got
Boy, did
arguably-
he hit one tonight.
and you have arguably the best pitcher in all of baseball, Garrett Cole. But after that, what do you really have? And Chris talked about the Nestor Cortez injury. We'd be lucky to see him again this season. 15 days from now is August 26th. I doubt he's even picking up a baseball by then. So you can't even count on him the rest of the year. The whole Domingos Herman situation spiraled out of control, and now he's a goner. Luis Severino is legitimately batting practice.
Let's not bring up Domingo Herman. Let's not bring him up.
So with Severino, he's stuck in the rotation. They don't have anywhere else to turn at this point. Obviously they're going to call up Randy Vasquez to start. He either started tonight or starting tomorrow.
Tonight. Well, he came in tonight after from the third inning on.
Okay, so they had an opener in front of him. But
Yeah.
so they're bringing up Randy Vasquez. They bring up Johnny Brito, who's been on the shuttle back and forth between New York and Scranton. But at this point, where else are the Yankees going to turn? And they're not a consistently hitting lineup. Sure, tonight they scored 9 runs, right? They beat the Marlins. But they don't get that. They don't get that production consistently, right? Stanton is not consistent enough at the plate.
He's hitting 208 this season,
And
a grand total of 208.
And something's got to be wrong with him, because we saw that play, him trying to score from second base on that base hit over the weekend. I mean, you couldn't either. He's not trying hard to run because he didn't want to hurt himself, or he's just that slow, and that's a big problem. That's a big problem on their hands. Judge still nursing that toe injury. That's a problem, right? The Yankees have problems all over the place. Rizzo's now out because the post-concussion syndrome stemming from the Tatis incident.
And we've talked about his struggles throughout basically the month of June and July.
And, I just don't see there being enough there for the Yankees to make a postseason run. There's just too many teams in the American League that are better than they are. Whether it's
agree
Houston,
on
whether
that.
it's Toronto, whether it's
Seattle,
who's picked it up, but they're just not good enough. And by the way, quick side note in terms of because of Stanton, did you guys see the stat? He's got the most home runs by any Marlin since 2017.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
And he hasn't played for them since 17.
Right.
He's got the most home runs by any Marlin.
Well, they haven't had many guys stay really long there.
The only guy who came close and he got traded in the offseason to the Brewers was Brian Anderson.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Amazing.
And Stanton's got 18 this year for the Yankees, and Judge now has 22 if I'm not mistaken.
He's inching closer to 400. I think he's 490 something,
396, right there, 7, something like that.
Something like that.
Interesting. Stanton will be a guy, I guess, will have to probably be the trivia question if he's going to be in the Hall of Fame maybe 4 or 5 years from now. If he gets close, he's getting close to 500.
If he gets to 400 this year, he's got 4 years left on his deal. If he averages 25 home runs a season for his last 4 years, he'll get 500. And I think 500 gets him in the Hall of Fame.
Chris, is he going to average 25 games a season?
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know.
Well, he's got 18 he's got 18 this season, right? And he's missed a bunch of times. So I mean,
yeah.
And you also got to figure he's going to get worse.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's definitely not going to get better. So,
well, he's 33, right? He's 33 this year, so he's going to be 34 at the end of the season.
But that's the problem. He's 33. He's not 37. How is he losing it this soon?
And he's in better shape than probably any. We wish we were in the shape he's in. I can't understand why this guy can't run.
I think he's wound too tightly.
I mean, that's going to be it'll be an interesting discussion. And Brad, I'll let you have the last thought on the Yankees, who again, won tonight. They're alive, but I think I'm going with what Mr. Judgment is in dominant breakout wrestling. He's from Purgatory, the land of Purgatory. To me, for the rest of the baseball season until they're mathematically eliminated, to me, the New York Yankees are in baseball purgatory. Am I wrong, Brad Weiss?
No, you're not, because they are, and unfortunately, I can't believe I have to say this, and I don't want to, but I have to compliment the New York Mets compared to what the New York Yankees did. I mean, I think the
You
New
want to
York.
rewind the tape there, Brad? You want to rewind it?
No, I have to say it. I mean, at least, and everybody said it, and I think it's right, is that the New York Mets at least showed you a sign of direction and actually cared enough to look like they had a sense of, okay, well, we know that this is not going to work, so let's scrap it and try again. Whether that's correct or not, we don't know, but at least, as everybody has said, they tried. The Yankees basically showed you nothing. They basically showed you that they're content with what they have, and they think that's good enough. And to me, to be honest with you, Chris, and I don't want to be too harsh on the Yankees, that kind of describes the tenure of Aaron Boone since he's been there, is that they think they have enough to do it, but they can't do it. And it just hasn't gotten done. And you know what? And again, Chris knows this, and I think I know this. The Yankees are supposed to be a team that are supposed to be World Series or bust. And the New York Yankees in Aaron Boone's tenure have been make the playoffs and hope we do well, or that's it. And that's not the Yankees. So to basically summarize it, this is not who the Yankees are. And they're showing you that I guess this is what we're now supposed to expect, is a team that's content with what they have. They don't have a direction. They're not sure what to do. Their front office is not stable, which is not something, again, the Yankees have had in the past. So this is a whole different Yankee team. And I think, again, everybody's going to go back to, they got 28 World Series in a history. But the history lately has been that they're not a team that you think of as the Yankees.
They're not a threat in the playoffs. They really haven't been.
They're not the Yankees of old. They're different.
You know what? It speaks to ownership. That's what it speaks to. It doesn't speak to Aaron Boone. It doesn't. Okay, you want to blame a little bit on Brian Cashman? Okay, fine. It speaks to ownership. That's what it speaks to.
100%.
You know what's another issue? You know what's another issue? They don't develop players.
Right. To me, it's mostly on Cashman.
They've developed.
But people were saying earlier this week, Steinbrenner did re-sign Judge. He opened the checkbook for Rodon, so he tried this offseason.
I don't think it's Steinbrenner because he's spending money. I mean, he's spending the second most payroll in all of baseball.
That's my point. They signed
right?
Rodon to a big
it's not
contract.
on him. To me, it's on Cashman because he's the guy that's deciding.
And that's something, we spoke about it a couple of different, because we've been doing these live shows on Sportswire for over 2 years. So 21, 22, 23, right? And it's now 3 years. And I've been doing this since 19. So some guys here have been on Sportswire before some of the other guys came on. And Cashman's talked every deadline. Well, did he do this? He didn't do enough. And it's kind of like, the Yankees haven't had, Brad, we always talk about in college basketball an identity, right? The Yankees really haven't had this identity where they're almost like, even when they make the playoffs, do you ever think that the Yankees are a threat in the playoffs? Not really. They've been in the playoffs. They've been there. But they haven't really been a threat. They haven't been the upper echelon. The Rays have always been a threat. The Astros certainly. Even Boston at times has been in there. And then you look at the Yankees in the American League, and they've been there, but
been to the ALCS a couple of times too,
yeah,
right? In the
but
last
you
few
never
years,
said,
but
okay, like this team's, they're gonna get there. They're gonna win the World Series of their team.
But last year showed you how far away they really are from the Houston Astros. I mean, what really encapsulates this whole situation is that two people need to be let go at the end of the year. It's Brian Cashman, even though it's probably not going to happen.
Nope.
And Damon Oppenheimer, their scouting director. Because where's the scouting?
I think what they need to, the whole front, analytic department, scouting department, everything. That whole department
antiquated.
has to go.
It's antiquated.
Right.
One of the things I appreciate about what Steve Cohen's done, and like Brad said about the Mets, like we've all said about the Mets showing a direction, and I do appreciate the season ticket letter that they sent out. Kind of.
Oh, you actually got one. Usually, when I was an Islander season ticket holder, there was never letters sent. I appreciate that you actually got one.
But what it shows me is they have a vision for the franchise. Things did not work out this year, but they have a vision. I don't understand what the Yankees' vision is, and I think that those changes need to be made. I mean, it's abysmal how the reason why that all this money is spent in the wrong place for the New York Yankees is because they don't develop players.
And they've also made horrible decisions in who they should go after, too. Just think about it.
Absolutely.
They had a chance, not a chance. They could have gotten Harper and Machado. Think about those two guys. Those two guys,
but they trade.
And
for
Harper
Stanton.
wanted,
Right.
and Harper wanted to be a Yankee, right? And
Right.
Machado,
and so did
I think
Machado
we knew-
too.
Yep, yeah. I was about to say
How
Machado.
do
We
you
knew
say no to
No,
these
they
guys?
just-
They're
yeah.
future Hall of Famers in their primes, and they say no. You bring them
Oh,
in.
but instead we signed Aaron Hicks years ago, right? We saw that win. We
It's so frustrating.
We traded for Joey Gallo. We saw that win. We traded for Josh Donaldson, Isaiah Kiner Falefa. We saw that win. I mean,
And think about it. This offseason, just go to this past offseason. They needed a left fielder. They decided, let's not go for one. They could have got Bellinger. They could have got Yoshida that went to the Red Sox. Both those guys are having really good seasons.
I mean, Bellinger's going to be a free agent again. He's probably, if you're looking at the free agent class,
I would bet to say he stays in Chicago. I really think that he's found himself a home there, and I think when all said and done,
they sneak into the playoffs because
they're going to give him a long-term deal, and because I read this about Bellinger, they believe they fixed what was broken with him. So obviously he had that shoulder injury stemming from the celebration in Game 7 of the 2020 NLCS, and that really messed up his swing. They believe he's finally fully healthy, and B, they were able to shorten his swing, and it's cut down on his strikeout significantly. Average is way up. The power's starting to come back. I don't think he's going to end up being really that available in the offseason.
Yeah, I guess we'll certainly find out here. And Brad, I was getting a message from one of our peers in another podcast, but I'll leave that for the end of the show. They were asking me thoughts on a movie. But free agents of note, because I actually was prepared for this. I guess I'll go run down position by position. Yasmani Grandal, I mean, he's a free agent. I mean, Travis d'Arnaud, we got some club option guys. We're not going to go there. Josh Bell is having a terrible year. He's got an opt-out. Brandon Belt's a free agent, first base.
Hold on. Josh Bell has been really good since being traded to the Marlins. I will say that.
Right, but he's got the option, so he may just opt into the
I think he'll stay with Miami.
And you guys got a first baseman.
But my point is that he can just opt into the contract. Colton Wong, second base. Jonathan Shoup. Those are the two other names.
Nope.
Justin Turner's got an opt-out, but I think he's going to stay with Boston. He's having a great year, I would have to imagine. Chris Donaldson's got a mutual option, so, I mean, he could be out there.
That's
Evan
not happening.
We know what's going to happen there.
Gio Urshela, shortstop. I mean, Elvis Andrus.
I wouldn't mind bringing back Gio to play third.
Yeah, I mean, a shortstop.
I wonder how he'll recover.
I
wonder how he'll recover from that fibula injury, though.
Yeah.
Other names of note: Bellinger, who I just spoke about, maybe one of the bigger chips. Conforto's got an opt-out. Joey Gallo, our old friend. Jock Peterson, Andrew McCutchen, probably toward the end of his career. I don't think
He's
much
probably
about
staying
that.
in Pittsburgh.
Same with Michael Brantley, Tommy Pham. You've got Randall Grichuk. That's a name out there. People have kind of penciled in a little bit.
You mentioned one name that I think would be incredible for the New York Yankees, Jock Peterson.
Yes, I just mentioned him. Correct.
Well, left-handed bat,
I think he would be incredible. He could play all three outfield, whether it's left, center, or right. You could stick him in the outfield, no problem. And that swing in Yankee Stadium is tailor-made for 35 home runs.
Will Myers, outfield, DH, obviously. Ohtani, separate discussion in itself. JD Martinez having a huge year. Don't think he's coming to either.
I don't think he's leaving LA.
Yeah. Matt Carpenter, Nelson Cruz, who I think is done at this point. Now Nelson Cruz trying to hang on for 500 home runs. Don't think that's going to happen. Starting pitchers, they got some names. This is where it gets interesting. Got Clayton Kershaw, Aaron Nola, Blake Snell. Blake Snell's out there. Julio Urias, Lucas Giolito. Obviously, that was a big trip at the deadline.
It's a bad starting pitching class. It's really bad. The only guy I kind of like on that list is Julio Urias.
We got Blake Snell's a free agent.
I'm not a big Snell guy.
Marcus Stroman's got a chance to opt out.
This is depressing.
Blake Snell walks way too many.
We're gonna be bad again.
He is so bad with his walk rate that he's a ticking time bomb in terms of falling.
Yeah, apart. I mean the starting pitchers. I mean Jordan Montgomery, Jack Flaherty. I mean those are the big names. I mean I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even going to waste my time.
You got
on
no
one
aces. You
window.
got more like 2, 3s,
Yeah, middle of the
4s.
road. I mean,
know.
Kershaw,
Two?
I would imagine, stays in Los Angeles.
Where are you finding a 2 in there?
Oh, Blake
Maybe
Snell.
Urias.
I think Blake
Flaherty.
Maybe.
Flaherty,
Snell,
when he's
I think-
healthy, he's a
So,
good two.
I mean, a lot of the names I'm hearing, I could compare them to Carlos Carrasco, and you know what that means.
He's on the list, by the way. I'm sure somebody will take him.
There's some good pitchers in there.
And relief, I think Josh Hader's obviously the big chip for the closer market. You got David Robertson,
Yep.
Craig Kimbrell, just a
Okay.
name. Chapman, Ottavino's got a player option. Obviously, that's going to be something he decides. I think guys spoke about that as well. Matt Moore, these are names that you really don't think much about. No, Otani's in a different class in itself. And standings here
I
for
would actually, by the way,
Sure.
I would not mind if the Mets went after Matt Moore in the offseason.
It's an interesting
he's
name.
just this
I heard that
crafty
name on the
lefty that's
fan.
he's just found a way to he was this top tier pitching prospect coming up with Tampa Bay, right? Obviously, a lot of injuries got in the way, and he's just made himself a really solid lefty out of the bullpen. And I would not mind to see the Mets go after him.
By the way,
Yeah.
Tom, can I say one last thing before you
Say
go?
anything you want, Brad Weiss.
Let me
You're a
say
big guy.
one last thing, okay? Because I forgot to mention him, and I know Rob Moroska is going to agree with me on this one. All right, because there's one other player that if he's on the 2024 roster, I'm not watching a game. All right, and Vogelback is one of them. Okay, and Drew Smith is another. All right,
Yeah.
he's done. I've seen enough of him. I mean, he every time he comes in, he lets a home run. I mean, it's enough already. We've given him a lot of years to try to develop this guy, and every chance in the world, he stinks. If he's on the team next year, I might not watch a game.
I don't think you're watching a game this season, so I mean, next season is going to be hard to kind of fathom.
Well, with that free agent class, I probably won't because honestly, that's not going to help us get better. So I'll just
I don't see the Mets going for Blake Snell. I mean, Aaron Nola. I mean, it's really, like I said, I ran through the class of the names, and they're really, other than Otani, maybe Blake Snell, maybe a few Bellinger, maybe Jock Peterson, even that.
But again, here, the problem is what I said to Chris earlier. We talked about holes. I mean, we have a million holes and a black hole. I mean, we got.
Chris was in the black hole. He saw Metallica twice. That was like the black hole. That was literally.
I mean, we
was a
got
good black hole,
a lot to fill.
Sunday
A
show
lot.
I heard was better, by the way. The Sunday show I heard was better because they played
A little bit,
better
yeah.
side.
I said
I
that too.
mean, I don't see a lot of names there being able to fill our holes. To me, what it sounds like is that I might have to watch more Danny Mendick and other guys on the team, and if that happens, forget it.
Well, you might be forgetting anyway, but we are on Sportswire Radio. We're speaking all things related here to the world of sports for a little while with some of my guys, including Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter, Rob Moroska, the Contest Man, Chris Bizea got the Liftoff Jets in the Talking Rivals. Talking Rivals in the rotation. I'll have the Liftoff Jets up this weekend because I'm live a bunch of times. I'm actually not live tomorrow tentatively, but I'm live most of the evening, so I'll use that in between that. And, of course, the brute force Bradley Weiss from the Long Island Nets. He is the man that knows the New York Liberty better than anybody else. He is also a legendary SJLI Golden Eagle, 27th at the moment all-time in school history and rebounds. He's also the coach for our Plainview Boys JV basketball team. And, Brad, I was telling you off the air earlier in the day, I cannot wait till October 15th when we get to local college basketball because thinking about some of these baseball shows here coming up, I can't wait till some of our friends get back on the court because it's going to be tough. I know football's coming, and maybe we'll see how the picks do, but some of these shows that speak baseball, it's like having root canal again, but we'll certainly see. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I'd like to thank everybody out there for helping Sportswire Radio achieve 300 subscribers on YouTube. I appreciate that. A lot of new subscribers over the past really several days and weeks. And we are also on Instagram at the Sports Report 2021. Also, a lot of new followers there, which is helping us out. We're on sportnarium.com/player where we play podcasts like the Liftoff Jets, the Talking Rivals, when the Baseball Banter was in the rotation. Also, Randy Dillon, who was on at the beginning of the show, does hockey for us. Neil Villapiano does some New Jersey Devils talk. Devils season's coming closer. Hockey's maybe about, I think, 8 weeks away from now, about 9 weeks. So we have that number of wrestling shows. So your podcast can be played on our station. It's free of charge. All you have to do is give me the file. I'll play it, and you get your chance to heard worldwide on the web. But we are speaking all things related to the world of sports. I will give you some baseball scores obligatorily. Speaking of teams that can't figure out what they're doing. The San Diego Padres 7, the Arizona Diamondbacks 2. Padres are alive, but a team that's a big disappointment, really, to me, one of the bigger disappointments in baseball this season. But because of this goofy wild card situation, they are alive. Rays 9, Guardians 8. Guardians, again, they're alive for really no reason other than the fact that that division is just terrible. Reminds me of when the San Diego Padres back in 2005 won the National League West at 82-80. That was one for the ages. Phillies 13, Twins 2. Brad, at least you're Phillies, right? At least this year you might want to consider going to a Phillies game. Obviously, that's a place you could probably have some more friendlier confines here for you. We spoke about the Yankees. They won 9-4 over the Marlins. Nationals 8, A's 2. Boy, that's a game. Nationals Athletics. That's a game I would pity you going to that game. I can only imagine.
I think you'd rather watch that one than the Mets, though, to be honest.
Nationals A's, really?
No, come on.
I think you got
those
Alonso
teams.
and Lindor still for the Mets. I have to
The
say.
Mets are interesting. The Mets are more interesting than those teams.
Yeah,
Come on, they're not the worst team in baseball.
You got Alonso and Lindor still, and Alvarez. I mean, who are you watching, Brad, on the Athletics and Nationals? I mean, who are you
Nationals
watching?
got some decent players, I think. Right?
But against Oakland?
Yeah, Oakland's bad. I mean, that's
Cincinnati 9, Pittsburgh 2. Cincinnati is a team that is in the mix because of this wild card. Cubs 6, Blue Jays 2. So the Yankees get some help tonight, Chris. They are now 4 games back in this third wild card. So, like I said, they're in purgatory. They hang around. Red Sox 5, Tigers 2. Red Sox and the team kind of in the same boat. Braves 7, Mets nothing. Basically, it was a touchdown. It was like Brad. It was like Falcons Jets of a few years back. Remember we talked about the Falcons?
This year.
No, not this year, but in years. I said years past. I pretense. Brewers 7, White Sox 6, Royals 12, Cardinals 8. That was sounding like a football score. Obviously, Royals have played a little bit better since the All-Star break. They'll avoid 120 losses.
They got hot against the Mets.
Yeah, they swept the Mets.
They got hot. Well, they swept the Twins also.
Before
they won the series before that too. They swept
the Twins. They swept the Twins.
Yep.
Which is
Still, they got through us really easy. It was like sweepage easily.
The Royals are now 38-80, so at least they'll avoid 120 losses. But
and that's who the Mets got swept by, a team who right now is 38-80.
But to be fair, the Minnesota Twins, the series before, got swept by them, and they're in first place. And that, to me, is an abomination, that the Minnesota Twins are 60-58 and are in first place right now.
I gotta be honest. The Royals might be bad, but there's a lot to like on that team.
Yeah, they got a lot of young prospects, a lot of young players.
I love Bobby Witt Jr. I think he's
tremendous. He had some month in
That's
July.
about it, though, with Kansas City. There's a lot of guys that kind of took a step back this year instead of taking that step up.
Perez.
Yeah. I mean, still got the veteran Sal Perez. Drew Waters has been playing for them. I know he was highly touted by the Braves originally before going to Kansas City.
Singer actually has been good since the All-Star break, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Royals, obviously, it's still going to be a rebuilding period. Mariners 8, Orioles 1. Mariners, a team that got off to, I guess they were for a while our disappointment of the season, but they've played a lot better the last 20 or 30 games. And
they were my original AL World Series pick.
Well, there were a lot of people.
I'm hoping they turn it around.
Well, they're right there, though, but they're very much alive, and they might be getting hot at the right time. So they could be the team I would not count out. Dodgers 2, Rockies 1. Rangers 2, Giants nothing. And then going over into the standings before we move on here, we've got the Orioles 2.5 games up on the Rays, although that could change, and the Orioles could be 2 games ahead. Blue Jays 7.5, Red Sox 10.5, Yankees 11.5. Everybody could gain a half a game for what that's worth. Twins 3.5 over the Guardians. You know how embarrassing that the American League Central is? The Detroit Tigers are only 7 games out of first place, and they're 12 games under 500. That tells you the state of the American League Central. In the West, Rangers are 2 ahead of Houston. That could certainly change because we still have some outcomes there. Mariners are also right there, 5.5 back. That could also change as well. So maybe Rangers pick up half a game. Mariners, though, pick up a game in the wild card. Very much alive there in that wild card. Blue Jays hold the last spot. But the Mariners have a bunch of games in hand. That could maybe help them. They could be a game and a half back with a win today. So we'll have to see. Yankees 4 back. Astros are in the second spot. Tampa's in that first spot in the wild card. Going over to the National League, Braves pretty much comfortably in the driver's seat once again in the National League East. They are 9.5 ahead of the Phillies. Marlins 14.5 back. Brad, our New York Mets 21.5 games back. Brewers 2.5 over the Cubs and Reds, so it's going to be coming down to less than a field goal in that division. But you got quite a race for that last wild card spot between the Mariners, the Cubs, the Reds, all pretty much virtually tied. Although I think the Reds and Cubs are by percentage points ahead of by half a game over the Marlins. Giants are in the second spot, 62 and 53, 6.5 back though of the Dodgers. So that could certainly change tonight. Could be a game ahead for one team over the other. Diamondbacks 57 and 58. That could also change. Padres 55 and 60. If the Padres win, they're pretty much in the identical positions that the Yankees are in. So pretty much that's kind of where we are in the standings. We're just about, I would say, 7 weeks or so left till the season comes in. And, speaking of which, I want to spend a few minutes on it to kind of get us ready because, Brad, we were talking about this off the air. Looks like the football season can't come any sooner.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with this baseball season, again, I have the privilege of watching a great team in the New York Liberties. So
you
I'm
were there
not
last Sunday. You certainly had some connections there, I saw.
Oh, yeah. I listen, it's been an amazing season. I was sitting in the suite the last game. It's been a terrific experience with the Liberties, so it's definitely given me, a little bit of something to be excited about because baseball certainly is not exciting anyone. But, listen, with football, there's a lot to be excited with. Obviously, the Jets are going to be a good team this year. I think, watching Hard Knocks and seeing what's going on with them, it's pumping you up and exciting you about what the Jets can do this season. But I think with football, a lot of us have talked about, especially, with the picks. And, of course, John Gonzalez already calling himself the king of picks and trying to get himself hyped up for this season and talking trash to everybody about how he's going to win again. But listen, the football season is going to be exciting, Tom, because there's not a lot of bad teams in the NFL. It is very balanced across the board.
A lot of competition this year. A lot of competition.
Yeah, it is really balanced across the board between divisions. There's a lot of good teams out there. Obviously, the AFC, there's a ton of great teams. And I think in the NFC, I think there's some teams that are going to be, ones to be excited about, like my Detroit Lions. So,
absolutely. That's a good point on the Lions.
Listen, there's a lot to be excited with the football season. With baseball, we're talking about our teams in New York sucking, a division where a team that stinks is winning. That's not going to be the case with football. It's going to be a lot of good competitive teams. There's going to be a lot of good games. There's going to be a lot of interesting games. And, with our picks this year, I'm just excited because, one, I think everybody's going for John Gonzalez. And, two, it's going to be a little more challenging when we have spreads and everything else in there, too. So I'm excited. I'm hyped. I'm ready for the Jets to finally do something this year. I'm excited just to see
they're in a tough division, though. They're in a very tough division, though.
Yeah, but still, just to see a competent quarterback, just to see a team that, again, looks like a good team. The Jets have not, we haven't really felt like this in a while. Yeah, we've had teams that we thought maybe would do a little bit, but this is a team that has everything in place. And I know it's going to be a challenge, but at the same time, you can't ask for, a pretty, much better roster than this. This is a great roster.
I think even the Giants should be competitive again this year. Made the playoffs last year, won a game. I think the Giants should certainly
Absolutely. But again, for them, it's going to be their division's no cakewalk either.
I think most of the divisions in the league this year, just thinking about it, right? Maybe with the exception of the NFC North, Green Bay takes a step back. Chicago obviously still rebuilding. Minnesota.
Detroit?
No, that's going to be a tough division. Minnesota's not bad.
But Minnesota, Detroit, and then you got Chicago and Green Bay. Certainly Chicago might be better than
everybody
Green Bay.
loves Justin Fields, right? Everybody's going crazy for him until he proves it, but everybody thinks he's going to have a
And
great
then, of
season.
course, back to me, the AFC North maybe my favorite division. I think
that's crazy. That division's crazy.
I think all the teams in that division could win.
I don't know if you should be that excited, Tom, because I think the Steelers are going to be 500, but that division is good. That's a good division.
That whole division might be about that, right?
Well, I was going to say.
They're going to beat each other up, that division.
I think Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland. And speaking of people, that's coming my upcoming guest who's from Tennessee, by the way, Mr. Atomic Titan. Of course, the American Dragon from Tennessee Backyard Wrestling wants to say, watch out for them Titans. Anybody has a thought for Mr. Atomic Titan?
I got something quick. Watch out for the Jaguars. That's what I got to say to you. Because the Jacksonville Jaguars, I like them. I think they're coming.
They're coming.
Atomic doesn't think much of the Titans this year, by the way. And I'll have to ask Atomic when he comes back on the show. I think next week. I think we're going to try to get him next week, maybe sooner. I think we spoke off the air.
I mean, I'll say this. I think that division and the NFC South will be the two divisions that are maybe a little weaker, but still competitive. I mean, they're competitive divisions, maybe not at the level of some of the others.
NFC South, I mean, think about it. We got New Orleans. Okay, New Orleans, maybe.
I think the Saints are going to be pretty good.
I think the Saints. Then you've got, Brad, of course, our team we always say is an NFL purgatory, the Atlanta Falcons.
You mean the dumbest team?
Well, they're in purgatory.
Oh, that's right. That's the
purgatory. You always say purgatory. You got Carolina. Then you've got Tampa, which is obviously Brady-less. I mean, we have to imagine that, they're always –
Listen, if the Falcons get anything from their quarterback, that's going to be a pretty decent team too, because that kid Robinson, the running back,
Yeah.
he's
if
the
you
real
look
deal.
at it, you're in the division.
Bijan is the real deal.
If you look at it, they're in the division that they're in. Maybe you could pick up 8-9 wins just by your division
It's possible.
record.
It depends on, like who's their quarterback? Ritter this year? Desmond Ritter? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know.
I mean, they listen, Chris. With the Falcons, though, I mean, most years they can score, but can they play defense? I mean, that's always the question with them because
They played a lot of
had
close
some big
games.
leads and they blow them.
And and they play in a lot of close games, and that's why they're sort of on this peripheral edge of kind of competitiveness. And Atomic, because he's the American Dragon, of course, and I'm going to let him comment. He's going to say, Titans always let you down. And he also says, what's your thoughts on college football this year? For the college football guys, obviously college football is coming back in a couple of weeks. Anybody for the college football fan out there? I know I got a couple guys on, and I'll give a thought after that.
I'll be honest. I'm totally against all these big conferences now.
The realignment,
it's bad.
I think it's going to be bad because
the Pac-10 is going to be like the Pac-30 now.
Think about it from the travel aspect of some of these kids that are playing now from California. They're going to be playing in the Big Ten.
Right, I think about it when I covered
crazy
you in
every
college.
weekend.
Remember how it would be a big deal if you went to like some town in Pennsylvania? Now you got guys going from cross country.
It's nuts. I think it's
horrible.
horrible.
That's not good. That's not good at all.
No, I think it's horrible.
Way. That travel is crazy. They're crazy.
Yeah.
I guess the one reason the networks might want it because there might be something about, let's say, USC or UCLA going into the cold and playing. That could
for
be
the networks, it's awesome. There's no doubt about that.
But the networks want that.
It's all money.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
That's it.
And Atomic would like to say, also going back to the NFL, he says he thinks Kansas City goes back to the Super Bowl.
Can't doubt it. With the way they've been to 3 out of the last 4.
Why not? Right?
Can't doubt them.
No, you really listen. Mahomes proved it last year. That guy played on one leg basically, right? With the bad ankle. So
if we sort of agree on the AFC that Kansas City goes back, in the NFC, who do we like? Does Philadelphia go back? Does San Francisco come in there? Brad, what about even our Detroit Lions?
The only thing that scares me about Philly is that usually the team that loses the Super Bowl usually has that tough season the next season. So, but I really like Detroit a lot. But the 49ers have to be the favorite.
I even go back, if you remember, when the Giants in 2000 went to the Super Bowl and got blown out. And everybody thought the next year that team was going to be, it was the same team practically. They should have no problem going back. And they got off to like a slow start, and they wound up missing the playoffs. And I mean, you go back, it is very hard. San Francisco, when they went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, missed the playoffs. I mean, it is kind of tough to get there, lose, and come back and do it again. Obviously Buffalo, we know 30 for 30 did it four Super Bowls in a row. I mean, that's, it kind of.
I look at the teams, right? You got to look at Philly, San Fran as probably the top 2 teams.
Yep.
But Seattle's got to be right there. But I look at Philly just for that reason. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they don't make it to the Super Bowl.
You don't think Minnesota's better than Seattle?
No. I think Seattle's a better team. I do.
And the team I have to mention, which I can see Brad's eyes about to bug out, the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, God. On paper, they look great, but we know what happens to Dallas. I hate to say it.
What's going to happen with them? Come on.
Okay, but
they should be a playoff team, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. They better be. Let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
exactly. That's a better way to say it. They better be.
Because it's not like the NFC is loaded where they shouldn't be. They better be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they have to win the division.
By the way, Brad agrees with you. He says Cowboys aren't doing nothing. They're not doing anything.
They'll do what they normally do. They'll make the playoffs, and then they'll get eliminated in one of the first 2 rounds. That'll happen.
Right. That's basically.
They did win a playoff game this past year. They did win a playoff game.
Normally they don't, so that was good. So listen, I can see them winning another playoff game and then losing the second round.
And I'll bounce very quick because I'll come back to the NFL in a second. Atomic wants to say Georgia's the new Alabama. Well, Georgia's trying to do something that is almost never done in college football. That's win 3 consecutive national championships, which is, you think about it, there's been some great teams in college football. The Alabama teams, certainly Florida back in the day, Florida State, Miami. I would have thought those Miami teams after watching 30 for 30. But nobody's done, I think that since the 30s, right? 3 consecutive national championships. Oklahoma had some great teams, back in the late 90s and the 2000s. Texas,
they had a nice
obviously, USC. But nobody's done 3 consecutive national championships in college football, which
that'd be pretty amazing if they do. And think about all the players that they've lost the last 2 years in the draft, Georgia, and they just keep bringing them in. It's a
that's why we
factory out there.
It's the SEC and everybody else. It's the SEC and everybody else, and that's why the SEC is like the premier thing. But yeah, I guess on the NFL, I still got to throw Dallas in there. I think they'll make the playoffs. I'll be curious to see if the Giants take a step back. Giants obviously had a strong season, played well, but the team I'm curious about is also that actually the only team that technically plays in New York, the Buffalo Bills. Do the Buffalo Bills take a step back? And
they shouldn't.
Brad, our friend James Cronin, of course, with the Sportatorium boys.
Oh man, well,
the East is going to be a tough division.
I will say, Tom, the Sportatorium guys came out with their first episode of predictions for, I believe, the NFC. NFC.
Yeah, I did see on Instagram they posted the show. Yeah,
I will say this though: next week or the next time we're on, the following week, I will make sure that I have some record predictions and some predictions from some of my top teams.
Yeah, I think more NFL talk, because baseball. I got to be honest, baseball. Yeah. I can't sit here and talk.
It's time to see what we think when it comes to records and schedules and all that, and it's also time to make sure John Gonzalez knows who's boss.
Well, I think it's the 18th, and I'm sure Mr. Titan will be very curious about this. Craven Rage is making his long-awaited return to Sportswire Radio. He is addressing a who's who of people, so that's going to be a big deal if you're in the backyard YouTube underground wrestling scene. So that'll be a big deal. But Atomic has a funny one, which I'm not sure if he's poking fun at his new girlfriend or if he needs a ring, because Josh Allen needs a ring. Because he needs a ring, but he also might be trying to give a ring. If you read the tabloids, if you read People, if you read TMZ, because Brad has a new girlfriend named Haley Steinfeld, who was in Spider-Man Across the Verse, and she's obviously very well known. I don't know if you know who that is, Brad. Maybe you don't. You're probably busy on the basketball court. But I can guarantee you, Brad, our friend Mr. McNeely knows who that is. I'll guarantee you that.
Oh, absolutely.
He'll definitely know. But Buffalo to me, I think, is the most interesting team because they've had these last 3 or 4 years some really good teams, and that they really haven't had much postseason success because they've been blocked by Kansas City and Cincinnati. And I guess I'll ask real quick, anybody Cincinnati, they're a team that's obviously lost the Super Bowl, came back, got there to the AFC Championship game, and arguably, some people think should have been back in the Super Bowl. And what do people think about the Bengals this year? Just an early kind of tease of what we're going to go with in these next
it should be right up there. As long as this whole Burrow calf thing, as long as he's fine for week 1, why not? Yeah, I think they're going to be in the playoffs, and I could see a rematch, KC Cincinnati.
Brad, I gotta have to make you chuckle, and I'm sure some guys will really chuckle when they hear this back on the tape. I personally would love to see if there was a will and a way of Pittsburgh-Detroit Super Bowl.
Oh, please. That would be quite funny. And by the way, me and John Gonzalez would have to do a play-by-play on Sportswire Radio of that.
Oh, boy.
That would be pretty funny. But with that being said, Cincinnati, I think, is the team that can get back to the Super Bowl 100%.
They've been such road dogs these past few years. They win big game after big game.
We haven't talked once about the Jets. Can
I
we
was
give
gonna
We got plenty of time for that. In
Come
a
on.
couple
saving
weeks.
that for the end here. I was saving that for the end. I was saving that, for
Yeah,
last.
but
Just
listen,
saying.
Cincinnati's going to be there. They're a good team, and Joe Burrow's a very good quarterback. So I like Cincinnati's ability to potentially get back there. But yeah, I mean, Chris does bring it up. I mean, obviously, listen, there's other teams going to be there too, and I think the Jets are one of them.
Well, I'll just say one thing. I'm going to get to the Jets in a second. The one reason I did want to bring up the Bengals is when you win 4 road playoff games in 2 years, you got to give them a lot of credit. And yet they didn't win a Super Bowl in those 2 years. But
I'll also say
road
one
playoff wins.
thing. I'll say one more thing just to make him happy if he's listening or he hears this somehow. It's been a really good year for Billy Heenan. I think he got a new
I
job.
saw that. Yep.
He got a new job at Port Jefferson. One of his players just committed to St. Joe's, Long Island, which is great. So it's been a great year for him, and I think what would cap it off is the Bengals winning the Super Bowl. And
I
maybe
think another kid is on the way also, if I'm not mistaken, right? Did I read that correctly?
Yep. So it's been a great year for Billy Heenan. So, that could lead to something.
Well, he's going to have to figure out then, because of all his responsibilities now, how many Bengals games he can go to this season.
Yeah, no, but he's definitely going to have to figure that one out because he's got a lot of.
So I'll bring it up here before we get to closing thoughts. I mean, so the Jets then, what do people think on this Jets team? Earl, I know it's early. I know obviously as we get very closer to, certainly on the 25th, we'll talk a lot more about the Jets when we come back to regularly scheduled programming. But I mean, how do people feel right now on this Jets team?
Feel good.
The potential's there. That's all I'll say. The potential's there. Listen, if they straighten out the tackle position right now, if Dwayne Brown gets back healthy, I'll feel a lot better about the offensive line. But you got to love the defense coming back from last year being a top 5 defense. They should be better this year. Shockingly, right? Better safety play, I think, easily. It's going to make this team much better. We got one of the best defensive lines in football right now. Obviously, one of the best corner combos in football. And, there's that guy, Aaron Rodgers, that we got, So I think as long as we don't get hit by the injury bug like we did last year, this is a team that has potential to make a lot of noise in the playoffs and maybe get to the Super Bowl. But listen, we have to get through the season. You know what I mean? Kind of, I don't want to say injury-free because everybody has injuries, but outside of major injuries, this is a team that could make a serious run at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question that this team is going to certainly be at the top of the discussion in the AFC, and it's a fan base we've spoken about time and time again that is starving for a winner. And, for you, Justin, anything else you want to add or anything else differently? And I know you got closing thoughts here, so I want to give you closing thoughts here, and then you have to run as well.
Okay. In terms of the Jets, everything is exciting right now. It feels like this finally could be something special, and this team will go as far as Aaron Rodgers could take them, and we know he has a chance to take us very far. So I'm super pumped up about the season.
Was there anything? I know you said you had to run here. Is there anything else you want to plug? Anything else you want to say here before I get to the rest of the guys?
No, not much tonight. You just got to follow me on Twitter at JGNLE12 or X, whatever you want to call it.
I know. I'm still trying to figure out.
You can't. It's hard to get used to. Anyways,
I gotta be honest. I'm more on Instagram these days. I mean, I'm on Twitter, but Twitter to me is it's like a dead platform almost.
It feels a little bit like that. But I'll catch you guys in a couple weeks when we're back on.
We're gonna be back on the 25th. We'll be back then regularly. Thank you, Justin. Good stuff here. So, anything else you guys want to add? NFL really? I know Jets. I think we're kind of high on them. Brad, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna say the guys are saying they feel good and I feel great about the Jets. All right.
Wow, Brad, you feel great? I'm worried, Brad. If you feel great, I'm worried.
Oh, God. What are you, John Gonzalez? I mean, listen, I feel great, and I feel confident in the Jets, all right, to be honest with you. I mean, there's no reason not to be. I mean, this is a team that me and Chris were talking all year about where the quarterback could have been something special last year. I mean, they basically had nothing at the quarterback position and should have made the playoffs even with that potentially. So to go to this season, obviously, yeah, you got to take the schedule into conversation, especially early into the season. The early season is going to be very telling of what we're going to do because we're going to have to weather the storm from the start. And I think that if we could be a 500 team and the first couple of weeks and into the 6-ish, 7-ish weeks, I think I would be feeling pretty good, knowing that the schedule does get lighter as we go. But again, when you have a competent quarterback like Aaron Rodgers who can make those throws, who can get it to all our wide receivers, spread the ball around, we have a good running game. Even though I was interested to see if Dalvin Cook was going to come to the Jets. I don't know what's going to happen now. But anyway, I still feel good about the running game. I still feel good about our defense. So there's a lot to like. And I know people question Robert Saleh, but I like him and I like the staff that he's put around him. So, again, there's nothing really not to like. I know it's a tough division. I know it's a tough conference. I know it's a tough early schedule. But, again, when you have a team, right, when you're a Jet fan, you've went through this much suffering, to have a team that you could really go and say, I want to watch this team play. And I want to watch every week, and I know this team has a chance to win. I mean, it feels good. And I think
it's the first time in a long time you feel that way. I know we had the 10-win team. What was it, in 2016? But other than that,
that was kind of an anomaly.
Exactly. I was going to say, this is the first time, I think, in a long time, you look at the Jets and say, you know what? They're a marquee team. I want to watch them. They have a player I want to take a look at. We really haven't had that in all this time.
You know what? I would generally worry about a quarterback who's 39, but I'm not worried about Aaron Rodgers this year, What do you have, a hand injury last year? So, that was last year. But I'm actually not worried, and the Jets are going to be exciting, I think.
Well, we're going to find out. Obviously, again, certainly it's going to be those first few weeks, like you said, Brad. They're going to have to come out there, get a couple wins, and it's a fan base that's obviously starved for some winning. Obviously, haven't been to the postseason since 2010. I mean, so that's certainly a stat that the Jets are going to look to break here. In 2010, they've only had one season over 500 since that was the 10-win team that missed the playoffs the last week of the season. All they had to do was win in Buffalo, and they were in, and they wound up not winning. It was a terrible day that day. Weather conditions were frigid out there in Orchard Park, and unfortunately, they laid an egg there. But other than that, it's been pretty much 500 or under, and it's been mostly losing since 2010, and we'll see if the Jets can break that. Obviously, Giants also had 9-7-1 last year, won in Minnesota wild card weekend, but did nothing against Philadelphia the next weekend after that, and they do have expectations, I think, as well. Barkley's back for another season. We'll see if Jones, who re-signed, can replicate the same magic with Dable, but they're going to have a tougher schedule as well this year. So I think they're going to have some pressure. They're not going to be able to sneak up on teams. So I think it's going to be a good football season. It has to be better than this baseball season. This baseball season in New York, even if the Yankees somehow get hot and maybe sneak into the playoffs, other than that, this has just been the worst New York baseball season I've ever seen in my life. This is just with these two teams. It's been bad. I mean, Brad and I can say, and obviously Chris and Rob, I'm sure, saw, like I said, some of the teams in the 80s and 90s that had just duds of a season. But just collectively, Yankees and Mets collectively, in my lifetime, this has been the worst. This has just been the worst.
Yeah.
It's just, nothing. I don't even want to really talk much about them. Maybe if the Yankees, I guess, obligatorily get hot here and they're 1 or 2 games.
I'd be shocked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll talk about them on the 25th. Obviously, we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming on the 25th going forward. But, it is summer also. And Craven Rage, like I said, a lot of people in the backyard are really looking forward to him returning, which I'm kind of curious about because he's kind of he's a lightning rod. He's almost like the Kardashian of backyard wrestling, where some people he's known, but people have different of opinions. But you know what? We've done a lot here on Sportswire Radio tonight. I pretty much gave you everything. We spoke hockey for a minute or two. We worked in wrestling. We spoke baseball. We spoke some NFL. Brad will mention the Liberty, I'm sure, at the end of the show, and we'll get into whatever else is on your mind. So let's go to closing thoughts here. Rob Maraska, obviously, you can say anything you want here, any social media, any contest stuff, also out there on your mind. Good stuff. I enjoyed it, and anything else, floor is yours.
Thanks, guys. Another great show. Enjoyed it. I think I'm going to switch to football contests.
Yeah, you guys,
So
these baseball contests. I mean, baseball at this point. Let's do football because baseball. I mean, the Yankees will be alive. I mean, I'm sure I'll talk about them. I mean, the Mets. It's just going to be a 5-minute recap going forward. There's nothing.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
think I'm going to go with the football contest. After this, that'll be my the Otani will be the last one. And listen, Otani got me a lot of got me more followers, got a lot of juice, and
No, I definitely saw that. No, listen, Otani. If it's a big name, throw it out there. I mean, certainly I'll talk about Otani.
yeah,
Here and there throughout, obviously, because of free agency, I'll mention his name. But I mean, in terms of like the locals, I mean, it's just do these contests and it's Met related. If the Mets, I think we're all disappointed about the Mets. I just want to put it out
Yeah,
there.
of
Because nobody
course.
thought the Mets were going to be double digits under 500, and the Yankees are what they are. So yeah, I mean, certainly football contest is good. Anything else you want to plug?
Nope, that's it. You can get me on Twitter, X, whatever it is. At
Yeah,
Rob
it's X.
Maraska, Rob Maraska, and on Facebook. And I think I'm gonna open up my Instagram again. I just got to work on that when I have some time. So that's it,
problem.
guys. Great show, and looking forward to talking on the 25th.
You got it. Absolutely, Rob. Good stuff there as well. Definitely 25th. It'll give people a chance maybe to spend time with family on the barbecue. So I like to give people a break while we here on Sportswire Radio get the return of Craven Rage. And yes, people here are welcome to tune in because a lot of people will tune in. They'll tune in. The fireworks will come out, I'm sure, a little more throughout the summer. So if you have been disappointed with fireworks, come on down next Friday because Craven Rage is going to certainly bring the fireworks. And the champion spoke to me off the air earlier today, and he promises some fireworks. But that's a different time for a different discussion. Chris, I'm looking forward to the liftoff jets. I'm going to use that. I'm on the air Sunday with a to-be-determined guest that will also provide fireworks, depending on who it is. So hopefully you and Charmin give me a little earlier fireworks to hype me up, get me in the mood. And I'll also look forward to having that in the rotation with the Talking Rivals. So anything else you want to plug, share, or say, and a thought or two on M72, I'm also open to hearing that as well. And anything else, the floor is yours.
Tom, thank you, guys. Great show as always. M72, man, the Metallica 2-night event was awesome.
Did they play anything from the new album, by the way? Which I'm kind of like, and how was it? How did the new song sound?
I have to give them credit, man. They're smart. They played 2 separate playlists, right? The 2 nights, and both nights they played, I think it was 3 songs each from the new album. So they basically played more than half the new album. So they get to promote their new album 2 nights.
And how was the crowd into those new songs? Were they into them?
They're pretty good. They were actually pretty good, the new album. The new album's pretty good. So
yeah, it was good. I was playing it for a while and I kind of lost a little bit.
It's not something I'm gonna probably play much later on, but it's not a bad album, But it was great, seeing Pantera.
And how was that? I mean, some people say, it's not really Pantera because obviously the Abbott brothers are dead.
But to have, Charlie Benanti at drums and what's his name, Zach Wilde at guitar,
2 local guys too.
It's okay. I was okay with those guys. If it was just 2 schmoes up there playing, I would be totally upset.
Did Eddie Van Halen's son was also one of the openers? And how is he? Wolf
Listen, he's great. I mean, he just doesn't have the stage presence yet. If I can say it that way.
Yeah,
he's a good singer. He plays guitar great. I think he recorded the whole album by himself. So
he did all the instruments. Yep.
So he's an amazing, musician. I think he just has to get and plus you got to remember they were playing on a, in the round in a stadium. So
I shared your clip on Twitter. I actually watched.
Yeah, for a band that's not used to that, that's a big stage, So I don't think they're ready for that yet. But
did Pantera open both nights, or was it they were just one of the 2?
No, that was separate too. So the first night it was Mammoth with Wolf Van Halen's band and Pantera was the first night. Second night was nine. What's that band?
5 Finger Death Punch on the bill? I think I heard. Right,
yeah, it was them and nine kills. Yeah, nine. Yeah, what is that band called again? 9 Inch Kills. They're really good too. But again, that's a band that needs to be on a smaller stage.
When I heard
Super
Five Finger Death
theatrical.
Punch, and I won't spend too much longer on this, but Five Finger Death Punch, I feel like is the ultimate poser band. I am just not a Five Finger Death Punch fan.
I like them, and they're pretty good. But that's another band. I think they're better on a smaller stage.
Yeah.
Like I've seen them at the beach, and they're great there. So
Yeah, I figured. Yeah,
yeah.
they belong on a
but,
bill. They belong on a bill with like Megadeth and Lamb of God. I don't know if they belong
Yeah.
on a Metallica
Yeah.
bill, like the second
that's a
tier.
cool.
Yeah.
That would be a cool triple concert. But
So Metallica was good. Okay, yeah, okay. Metallica was good. And,
yeah,
and-
great shows.
Did they play
Both
a lot
nights.
of Kill 'Em All? Anything from Kill 'Em All they played?
You know what? The second night they started off with Whiplash. So
Oh wow, okay.
I think that's. I'm thinking now. No, they also played the first night. They played.
Four Horsemen.
No.
They played Four Horsemen. Wow.
So,
that's the
Search
first-
and Destroy. That was it.
Okay, well the two of the first two songs I ever learned on bass was "Seek and Destroy" and the Four Horsemen. That's why I was kind of curious.
Oh,
if they
okay.
played
So there you
it. Yeah,
go.
there you
Very
go.
cool.
Oh, and was Joe Dell there, Rob? Was he there at one of the Metallica?
Yeah,
shows?
he was there on Friday night with the Rock and Roll Hall. I mean, the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame bus. They were giving out like hot dogs, hamburgers, and a bunch of stuff.
I wish I got there earlier to check that
then-
out. but-
Yeah,
that
and
would
then
have been
he,
cool. I gotta say
he
that
was in
would
the-
have been much more enjoyable than watching Met games. He said that.
and then he got to see the show in Ace Frehley's manager's box. So
Is that
nice.
was that Bob Both?
yeah, so
I
he
know Bob Both.
yeah,
I know Bob Both.
yeah, so he got to see the show from there. So he had he had an excellent time. So
Interesting.
yeah,
All right.
Joe Doe was there Friday.
M72 gets a rave review. Anything else, Chris, you want to share before I move on to the Brute?
On Monday, me and Patrick and I are going to have a special guest. Her name is Kelly Franco Throop. She's she's got her own podcast.
Okay.
And she's also a guest lecturer at the Baseball Hall of Fame.
You had her on before?
I haven't had her on yet. No.
You had somebody on there. Would you have somebody last year that was a big guest?
Not her, but another female we had on a few weeks ago. She was great.
Yeah.
She has her own podcast too.
Okay.
But she does like these videos like every day or every other day where it's like an on this date type of video. You know, it's like a quick 2-3 minute history thing on baseball. She's a great follow just for that. It's she's at 3 Inning Fan on X Twitter.
So that'll be Monday then on the show.
Yeah, we're gonna have her on Monday. She's really excited. So it should be cool. You know, it'd be good to kind of break away from, the Yankee Red Sox.
So
What's going on now?
You
We'll talk
get
a little
that
history.
show to me Monday. I'm on the air Monday night, and I say hello to Jason Storm, the wild card Jason Storm, the ROEW world champion, who was
I'll probably get it to you Monday,
300.
late afternoon, probably
So
like
now
5-ish.
I'll play it before I go on the air Monday night. I'm with a guy Vito Fratelli, so he's he's like he's got 8 world titles. So I'll make sure I play that show right before I go on the air with Vito, so that way I get to listen to the show. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool.
Very, very good, excellent stuff. We can follow you at CP7NY on Instagram and Twitter. I look forward to that. Thank you for the review on M72, which I still am not crazy about the album. I got to be honest. I really,
You know what? You could catch it in the movie theaters this week.
I saw
right?
that, and I did see that, and I looked to get a ticket because I have the AMC movie pass because I go to the movies like you pretty frequently. I might go a little more than you, and I was looking to see if they were playing it AMC, and they don't. Unfortunately, they're playing it they were actually playing it tonight. It was at the Regal in Sheepshead Bay, and I'm not going to go make a trek just to see M72. Yeah, I was looking. That was it. There was none.
None on Staten Island?
No, they did not have AMC. The AMC in the Staten Island Mall was not playing it, and the Regal on Forest Avenue closed, and the old Regal on New Dorp Lane is now an independent theater. So, so unfortunately, the only theater, and I looked for the show tomorrow. Actually, I was looking for the ticket Saturday before I get to Brad at the Sheepshead Bay one on Knapp Street, right off Shore Park, or right before you go into Garrison Beach. And they weren't. It was sold out, so I would have considered going to that. But unfortunately, I would have liked to have seen it. But that's here nor there. And James wanted to say it was Ice Nine Kills. Yeah, thank you for that.
Ice Nine Kills. That's the
Ice
band.
Nine
Yeah, they're
Kills,
very theatrical. They're actually going to be in on tour with In This Moment.
Okay, Maria
this
Brink,
fall.
the lovely Maria Brink. The lovely,
Yeah, she's very, very she's very interesting.
Yes.
Live. I've seen her a couple of times. Really cool.
Maria Brink. Interesting woman, very attractive woman,
Yes.
but we will plead the fifth because we're a family show on Sportswire. We turn it over here. We saved not the best for last, but we certainly saved the biggest for last. The brute force, Brad Weiss. I know we will see each other in a few short days, but I give you the floor. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? Floor is yours, my friend. Be my guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for another great week of the show. Thank you, Rob and Chris, of course, for another, again, great week of the show. And certainly excited for more with football talk as we go forward. Obviously, for the Sportswire guys, we got the group set up for all our picks. I'm excited for that. And I have more to say in a little bit, but let me first start with my social media. It is at bweiss20 on Instagram and at Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram. Searching Bradley Weiss on Facebook and, on X, all right, at Brad Weiss20. So you can find me there. Certainly, I want to start with the New York's best team, the New York Liberty. They won again tonight against the Chicago Sky. They are the second-place team currently, and the season ends on September 10th. They only have 5 home games left, and I was honored to have just went to a home game recently where I was sitting in, again, the suites at Barclays Center to watch an amazing 99-61 win over the league-leading Las Vegas Aces, who are supposed to be the best team in the league. But I think the Liberty are starting to say something about that for sure.
They scored 17 points in the second half, the Aces did.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Liberty were fantastic. Inescu was shooting from everywhere. She's been absolutely incredible. So, again, a great team to watch. But the reason why I wanted to bring that up was obviously, 1, to mention the Liberty, but 2, to mention the guy who I was sitting in the suite with.
Yes.
And the guy who I was sitting in the suite with is our guest for Wednesday night's show at 4 o'clock here on Sportswire Radio, and that is James DeSimone. James has been on the show before, but we want to have him back as he gets ready to go to Mr. Corday University. He's leaving on Friday night, so we want to have him on before he leaves to talk about the team, the season. The schedule has been released as well. We're looking to go to a few games.
December 29th, I think we have on the calendar, right?
CCNY, yep. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a couple other things, and just to kind of, chronicle a story a little bit as well, to talk about how he's gotten here like we did on the first show, and then talk more about the college experience. And it's kind of cool to hear from a player that's going into that, high school to college transition, to hear more about his story and how that's now going to transition based on all the experiences that he's had. So I'm looking forward to that episode against Wednesday night, 4 o'clock. We'll be here live on Sportswire Radio with James DeSimone. I also want to make sure I say happy birthday to somebody else who's going to have his show out this week, which is coming from my favorite podcast right now, Swing the Salt. Certainly a great show.
Yes.
And that is Gordon Scheuer. His birthday was now yesterday, but I'm going to say today. All right, so happy birthday, Gordon Scheuer. We're looking forward to having you on the show, hopefully, in the coming months to talk some SJLI basketball.
Not that far away, Brad. Not that far away, thank God.
It is not that far away, and I'm certainly excited. I've gotten to talk to some of the guys, McNeely, Gordon, a bunch of other guys around the SJLI team, and I think there's a lot to be excited about. And we mentioned, of course, and I'll talk more about that on Wednesday, about the player from Port Jefferson High School, who now is going to be at SJLI. He committed. He's a senior this year, but he is the first player that Billy Heenan, the new coach there, is bringing in. Obviously, Billy Heenan being the former assistant coach at SJLI.
For 2 years. Yeah, for 2 years.
So a lot to talk about there, but certainly wishing Gordon a happy birthday. And I'll give a shout-out, of course, to Swing the Salt. Episode 5 is coming out on Monday night. Can't wait to hear it. So be sure to tune in. All social media platforms, Swing the Salt.
And they'll be on before I go live as well. So that means I get another.
That's right. So certainly there. And then another podcast I have to give a shout out to. One that I really enjoy, and I will definitely have some comments on the 25th about this episode, coming from the Sportorium podcast. Certainly James Cronin and the boys are getting their football talk started pretty early, getting to talk about, again, their record predictions and what some predictions for the season. I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to Cronin being in the Hicksville Athletic Center Fantasy Football League, which we now have set up as well. And again, we also do picks with Cronin as well. So I'm looking forward to all that. And I even have an idea to potentially, and again, we'll see if everybody's on board, to potentially put together a Sportswire fantasy football league if some people want to do it. So I'm going to see if people want to do that for sure. But again, football season is coming. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to fantasy. I'm looking forward to the picks. I'm looking forward to everything else with football upcoming and all the rest of the great things as we get into college sports, we get back into high school sports. I'm excited to be back as the JV coach once again. My third
college soccer starts actually about 2 weeks from now.
And I know that we might even have a lot of people from 5 towns. Might even get a little close-up look at 5 towns.
I spoke to Coach Litwin about a week ago, about 5 days ago. I spoke to Coach. So yes, we had a good conversation about that.
We got some great guests that are going to come on here and talk college basketball, talk college sports, talk high school sports. I can't wait
to talk college because if you follow the backyard season for some companies ends in October. So that means you can actually talk college sports because the backyard, a lot of the companies, because you can't go out and wrestle in the snow, a lot of places. So November, December, we can talk college.
There's certainly a lot to be excited about. So that's why you should turn into Sportswire Radio. Can't wait for everything else to go on. And, again, everything with Level Up LI. Give them a follow at Level Up _ LI. We got a few camps coming up here in the summer and some tryouts coming up here in the fall. So can't wait. Lots of great things coming our way. And again, the quicker we can get out of baseball season, the better, because football is exciting and the Liberty will be in the playoffs, and I can't wait to be there for it as well.
Yeah, Liberty will definitely be the one team that'll matter from the New York summer season for sure. No question about that. And obviously, again, follow the Brew Force at BWeiss20, Brad Weiss 20 on Twitter. Also, Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram, Bradley Weiss on Facebook, Snapchat. That's the thing. And Mr. D. Simone, looking forward to seeing you before your literally last goodbyes to the people of the state of New York as you get ready to go to college. I look forward to speaking with you Wednesday afternoon. Also want to give a happy birthday to Gordon Shore, the aforementioned Gordon Shore. Although I spoke with him off the air, I'd like to give him a happy birthday on the air. I hope he had a great birthday. I'm looking forward to the next year ahead. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you back on Sportswire Radio. Also hope to see you on Swing the Salt. I'm sure my name will be mentioned, as about 19 million other podcasts have mentioned my name and Sportswire Radio's name at this point. So I would say bring it on. Can't wait to hear what you have to say about me, because nothing will top what everybody else has. So good luck. Can't wait to have that. But in all kidding aside, thank you, Gordon and Ryan, for all you do with the podcast. I enjoy that. Want to give a happy birthday also to a very good friend of ours, Mr. Steven Saperstein. His birthday is tomorrow, Sunday. Steven's celebrating a birthday. I promised Steven I would give him a happy birthday. I hope he has a great birthday. I know he's enjoying his life this summer here in the friendly confines of southern Brooklyn. So I know that Mr. Saperstein is having a nice summer, and I hope it continues for him. And I hope to see Mr. Saperstein very soon. And it's been a while since he's come on to Sportswire or commented on a Sportswire show. So maybe he's freaked out by Craven Rage. Maybe he's freaked out by the Prophet of Purgatory, Mr. Judgment. Maybe, I don't know, Vito Fratelli's got him worked up. I don't know what it is, but certainly Mr. Saperstein, we wish you a very happy birthday. And also, trivia note on Maria Brink. She actually sang one of the songs of the last John Wick movie. And also, Wolfgang Van Halen also plays bass, I believe, on the Barbie song about Ken, which Slash plays guitar on, which I just realized.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So that's a Wolfgang Van Halen trivia note.
How was that movie, the Barbie movie? Did you see it?
It was terrible. I saw the movie.
Oh, it was terrible.
I saw it. I'm embarrassed to actually say I saw it. Yeah, Barbie, I wasn't into it. I mean, I'm sure Ryan McNeely will have fun with this, and other people have had fun with this. I've actually said to people, yes, I've saw it, and I didn't like Barbie. Barbie wasn't for me. It just wasn't. Okay. Barbie was terrible. Did your daughter see Barbie or no?
No, they were trying to go, but they didn't really.
Barbie was packed even. I was at the movies on Monday. Barbie was packed even Monday afternoon at 5 o'clock. Wow. Barbie's like, I haven't seen anything like this, I don't know, in like ages. Barbie's like the phase. But yeah, I saw Barbie. I wanted to say I saw it. I think the first day it came, and I saw it in Dolby Stereo, and I did not like it. Barbie. But I saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem twice. I liked that a lot. That was very good. Okay. Yeah, Gran Turismo I'm seeing tomorrow on a sneak preview. I'm very excited about that. If anybody's a racing fan, I think Orlando Bloom is in it. Cool. Yeah, and then the last big movie of the year I'm excited for the summer is The Equalizer 3 with Denzel Washington. So I'm sure Brad, Gordon, and Ryan will hear that point, and they'll certainly have fun with that because I was speaking with them off the air. But yeah, definitely, that's great stuff. I also want to send my condolences to the family of Rick the Rejector Davis from the Brooklyn College men's basketball team back on the 1982 CUNY team that had made the Final Four, the only team in CUNY history to have done that. Obviously, Brad, our friend Danny Burns, that was his teammate. So I want to send my condolences to the guys. Obviously, Rich McAuliffe. Obviously, Brad, Coach McAuliffe. And Eddie De La Guardia, local guy here. So I want to make sure I send my condolences to the Rejector Davis. And again, happy birthday to Gordon Scheuer and Mr. Steven Saperstein. I think that's about it on Sportswire. I can't think of anything else. And if I do, I'm sure I'll be on 50,000 times between now and the 25th to remember it. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in on Sportswire Radio. I was joined with Justin Gianelli and Randy Dillon earlier. I'm here also with Rob Maraska. I'll have another contest by the 25th comes out. Chris Bizea of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals. The man I will see Wednesday, the brute force Bradley Weiss. And actually, Brad, one more thing I wanted to actually congratulate. Now I remembered. I want to congratulate Jamel Gist because our old friend Jamel Gist is the brand new coach of the Hunter Hawks men's basketball team. That was what I wanted to remember. Old Mr. Gist, you're a man you know very well, and Mr. Gist is the head coach over at Hunter. So, Mr. Gist, I wish him very well. I congratulate him. Did a phenomenal job at York. Obviously, SJLI and York have had a little bit of a mini rivalry the last few years, and Hunter will no longer be playing those 150 to 130 games that they've been playing, Brad, for the past 4 or 5 years with Coach Pellin's style. But Coach Pellin has gone in a different direction, and Coach Gist is just the man to lead the Hawks. Had a decorated career at Brooklyn College, also did a great job at York, turned that program around. I have no doubt that Hunter will be at the top of the pecking order in a very competitive CUNY-AC next year with teams like Baruch and Lehman and more. So thank everybody for tuning in. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, the man behind Sportswire Radio. Thank you everybody again to get us to 300 subscribers. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. On Sportswire Radio, on sportnam.com/play. You go back to music and more. So thank you. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. Stay well on Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. Good night.